Meeting to order, and tonight I would ask that Keith Kubik lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's board meeting. We would like to thank the staff from Green and our central office staff for getting us ready for tonight. And he's hiding, but he's in behind that monitor, the tech person who's making sure all this works. So thank you, Matt. Yeah, there are more seats up front. So we have a couple housekeeping rules. If you have a cell phone, we would ask that you would put that on silence. We will have public participation tonight. So in the back of the room, you'll need to fill a card out and drop it in that envelope. And when we take a break after recognizing students and staff, that's when we'll pick those cards up. Now, on public participation, you got to think you're going to get, we'll give you 2 minutes to speak. And so 2 minutes goes by really fast. So kind of have your thoughts put together. And we would appreciate it if you would stay on the 2 minute timeline. Let's see, what else do we have? Is there anyone from the news media here tonight? And if there is, we'd like you to introduce yourself and let us know what organization you're with. Okay, I don't see anything. Anybody? Okay. I got everything here. There's a few more seats over here. And I just also want to remind you that all of our board meetings and work sessions meetings are live. They're on Zoom. Sometime during a few days before the meeting, you can go on our district website and get the Zoom information. And also the meetings are all recorded. And so sometime tomorrow, this meeting will be archived. So that's kind of cool to go back if you want to. And if you have a student or staff member being recognized, you can let family and friends know they can go back and watch that. Before we go any further, I have a statement that I would like to read. And then individual directors, when it's their time, later in the meeting, we'll have time for individual directors. You can, if you wanted to say something about Howard, you can say that at that time. I am deeply saddened by the recent passing of Reverend Howard Johnson, our school board vice chair, and a treasure to our entire community. Howard served on our school district as a board member for the past 9 years. He had a deep passion for students, success, and well-being, and was dedicated to seeing our district and community thrive. Howard played an instrumental role in developing our district strat plan that centers on the goal that all students receive the care, support, and instruction needed to graduate from high school with plans for their most successful futures. Howard was always willing to share his unique life experiences, and we worked towards improving outcomes for our students. As for this, I'm especially grateful for him. His voice will be missed, but his efforts will continue throughout our schools. At this time, I'd like to extend my condolences to Howard's family during this difficult time. Although we have lost a great champion for our students, I know that he will continue to serve as an inspiration to all of us moving forward. He was my friend, and may he rest in peace. On this past Monday, the 20th, the board finished up a process of electing a candidate to fill Howard's remaining year on the school board. The process started on May 9th, And we had 3 applicants that went through the interview process. And at the end of the interviews, and when we had a motion and a second to announce that Keith Kubik would be that person to fill in for position number 3, the board voted unanimously to support Keith. So Keith is here tonight. Also at that meeting, go ahead and you go ahead and stop. Go over there. I'm gonna you go ahead, head up front. Also at that meeting on Monday, we selected Director Andrew Miner as our vice president, vice chair, vice president, vice chair. And so she will serve that term out through the end of June. So thank you. Congratulations. At this time, I'll turn it over to Jared.
Thank you very much, Chair Cotton. Keith, you can join me over here. So tonight, Keith is going to you'll take the oath of office as a newly appointed board member, appointed on the 20th, and you'll be sworn in today. So Keith, if you can raise your right arm to the square and repeat after me, please. I, Keith Kubik,
I, Keith Kubik,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Oregon,
the Constitution of the State of Oregon,
and the laws thereof,
and the laws thereof,
and the policies of the Douglas County School District Number 4.
and the policies of Douglas County School District Number 4.
During my term,
During my term,
I will faithfully and impartially discharge the responsibilities
I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of my responsibilities
of the office of school board member to the best of my ability.
of the office of school board member to the best of my ability.
Thank you. By the authority vested in me, you're good now. As the clerk of Douglas County School District Number 4, I hereby declare you duly sworn, duly elected, and eligible to serve as a member of the Roseburg Public Schools Board of Education. Congratulations, Keith.
Just a couple of things I like to say about Keith. First of all, we speak in front of people all the time, and first we get in a front of friends and we just kind of fall apart. So I apologize for that. Keith is not new to the Roseburg School Board. He served 18 years plus, I think 18 years and 3 months as a board member. And so it's really nice to have him here. And I will say that my first few years on the board, he still is a mentor to me. And I couldn't be more happier to have him sitting at the table with us. So thank you and congratulations. At this time, we're going to get a treat tonight. We're going to have 2 principal reports. We had to cancel one of the meetings earlier in the year, so it's important for us to hear from our principal. So now we get to hear from Principal Rasmussen from Green, and she'll spend a few minutes on bragging on her school. And
so
thank
much
you
to
for
brag
the
about.
tour.
Oh, you're welcome. Hi, welcome everyone. So glad to see you all. Welcome to Green Elementary. I'm Tammy Rasmussen, the principal, and this is my first year at Green, and I'm so proud. I want to take a moment and thank all of my staff that's here. Raise your hand, Green staff. There we go. Whoop, whoop. We're so glad you're here. And this library, Mrs. Bernardo, does it not look beautiful? It's so beautiful. And all the student art, there was a lot of work that went into that. And I would not be able to finish this without thanking my office manager, Miss Sherry Jones, my beautiful childhood friend and former Job's daughter. So it has been so fun to come back to and have that relationship back with her that we had when we were young children. So I've been in this community for 50 years, and I'm really proud to serve in Roseburg Public Schools. So let me tell you a little bit about Green. So I was appointed to this position in January of last year, and I had a lot of time to think and dream and plan about what I would want to do as the principal at Green. And I was gifted this beautiful book, a book of action, and it's called I Am One. And so I recommend you find this book in your local library or steal it from me when you have a moment and read it. Because what I found in all of the conversations I got to have in the 5 months I got to come on campus and visit staff and meet families and greet kids was that this was a community that wanted to come together around something. And they wanted to come together around all of the things that are important in our education system. And I love a good theme and really kind of sparked on this idea of being one. So in doing that, I asked teachers to come together this summer, spend some time with me thinking about what was important to them in terms of our culture and our community, what was important for them in terms of education, what would we do together, how would we celebrate together, and how would we bring other people to our school to lock arms and do the great work that we have to do in public schools. And we can't do it alone. I cannot step foot into this building and at any point think that I'm doing this work alone. I have to be partnered with other people. So we found a lot of people over the course of the summer and into this year who wanted to raise their hand and champion the work at Green. And one of our first events that we held was a veterans event. It's important to me. My daddy's a 38-year veteran of the Army. My brother is a disabled veteran from the Navy, and my two other brothers served in the Air Force. And so on November 11th, we honored our veterans with our flag ceremony, and we brought our school together as a community. It was really great. So a really special event. Another way that we lock arms, because again, we can't do this work alone. And I don't subscribe to doing any of this work alone. I want to partner with our school board. I want to partner with parents. I want to partner with our kids. And in this event, our fifth graders got a chance to go to outdoor school. We partnered with some local businesses, and we sent our students out for a 3-day adventure in the middle of the Coast Range, and it was beautiful. So you have a strategic plan, and you talk about our amazing Reverend Johnson and his work to support the strategic plan. And those components of the strategic plans were a part of my thinking in the summer as I planned for Green. And I kept asking the question of what would we know if a school truly embraced this strategic plan? What would you see when you came to a school? What questions would you be asking me as the leader of the school to see if I truly understood your strategic plan? Would our school feel safer? Would our students feel safe? Would they acknowledge that safety was important to them? Could they tell you how we are safe at Green Elementary? Would they talk about the brave values that they have and why those brave values are tied to composure and safety? And would they know skills about how to become composed when the world isn't going their way? And would they be safe to each other and kind? Would our school feel more inclusive? Would every child have a role? I shared some of the beautiful ways that our teachers think about our children in the classroom and why it's important that they all have jobs and roles and they're part of that community. So would Green be more inclusive? And would all kids at our school be learning at high levels? That's important to me. I believe these kids are incredible. They're bright, they're brilliant, and they can learn at high levels. So our overall student experience and the 5D work you've been learning a lot about is that our students at Green will feel safe, they'll feel loved, and they'll have a sense of belonging. They're going to be a part of a bigger world. This Carnes Road, Carnes Road. Raise your hand if you love Carnes Road. No, I don't love Carnes Road. It is fast, it's furious, but this is a thoroughfare. There are a lot of wonderful businesses, community members, wonderful little homes, and little library everywhere. This school is a place where families can gather. In the summer we did that. We came together and we did arts and crafts on the playground. And this school needs to feel a place where everyone belongs. Every child, every parent, every staff member, and our members of the community. So those are our fifth graders on the bus to their 3-day camp out. So what did we do? What's the work that I've been doing to really enact the strategic plan and make our school feel safe and inclusive and commit to a really strong core program? We were able to get some mentoring on site with some partnerships with the Ford Family Foundation. I have 11 probationary teachers. And so we were able to get some teachers to come alongside and lock arms with our teachers and build in some common prep time. We really worked hard on our conscious discipline implementation, and you saw that in our classrooms, the visuals, the routines that are in place, the language, common language around conscious discipline. We went to a 2-day course that the ESD put on this summer. We're really working on collective efficacy and the importance of that skill of all kids, of we're all working together with a common vision to improve the outcomes for all of our students. Again, core instruction is just critical. I cannot solve low academic outcomes with interventions. So we needed to work on our core, and we have. And so there's some really strategic things we've done in that realm. And then creating powerful learning opportunities and experiences for all students inside and outside of the classroom. So we've been going on some trips. We've been going to some parks. We're going to some farms. I want our students to know about this community and the beautiful places. They're hatching salmon eggs. We have chickens in the middle of the hallway right now. Those experiences change the neurons in the brain. They build pathways for the kids. And they remember, I still remember some of those childhood experiences I had, and those create memories, and they make that learning feel really important. So we've been working on that. And we have fun. So I love what the high school did with building the Lego trays, the high school partnership, and all of the CTE work that's happened there. It came to Green. And I called over and said, hey, I want some Lego trays. Our kids love Legos. This library has 30, 40, 50 students in it every lunchtime. And they love to build. And so they said, let's build them. And they had all the supplies donated. And now we have kids who can play with Legos and build things and dream all day long. We have a common time where our students come together and do a 0-day activity. And on this day, they were making cards for our veterans. And so this was a beautiful partnership between multiple grade levels, and the kids just had a great time working together and enjoyed that experience. So every child at the school matters. Every child can have a job. And my sweet little girl here loves to be in charge of the water in the garden. Who wouldn't, right? You might spray people, you might get wet yourself, but she can go into the garden, and she's so smart and so beautiful, and she will fill those buckets up for the kids so that they can go water the plants in the garden. And you know what? They might get a little too much water some days, and I don't care. Those kids are loving our garden, and she is a wonderful champion for our garden. And then the children are really living those brave values, being their best, respectful, accepting others, valuing each other, and encouraging our school. So where's that in the 5D? It's that through line. I learned all summer long. I worked for 5 months from January till today to learn about this school and this community. And I believe in what's happening here at Green. And that leads to the teachers. If I believe, and I can show the pathway, and I can clear the brush, they know that they have somebody who's going to champion their work and help them be successful in their classroom. And they're going to want to learn more. And that's going to contribute to student learning. So we're working really carefully to build a pathway from the leader to the teacher and to the student. And it's collective efficacy. It's belonging. It's influence. We have garden clubs. We have landscaping crews. We have kids who want to be a part of something bigger than them, want to create something special. They really love their vests. They love that they now have badges in there that says they're the green landscaping crew. They cleaned up all of our leaves. Mr. Mike loves them because they're out there. They even get badges for their blower skills. Can they do a blower? Do they know how to do a rake? Can they shovel dirt really well? Well, we're going to teach them all those skills as well. So that's an important component of the teacher learning and guiding principles. And I just want to go to step 3. I showed you some examples in your tour of how we really built systems and routines at this school, routines for how we sit, how we walk, how we talk to each other. And when the spoken routines weren't enough, we drew pictures of those routines, and we're building the routine of how to stand in a line and keep your body safe. How do we come to the cafeteria in a safe and respectful manner? And we do that across our whole school. Systems and routines are something I love to create, and it's something our teachers are doing an incredible job of implementing. So where are we? We have those visuals in every classroom. We had to focus on high impact instructional strategies during mentoring time, teachers learning deeply about fluency and why fluency matters. Teachers learning about math habits and how to implement them better. We have collaboration within and across grade levels and buddy teams, and kids are reading together. It's pretty special. We have safe and connected students, and we have targeted interventions and acceleration. Every student gets what they need during the day, whether it's acceleration time or intervention time. We make a time in the day, it's built in, it's protected for all kids. So who cares, right? Results matter. They do. And I'll tell you, our students were struggling at the beginning of the year. Our outcomes were concerning. 27% of our students reading at grade level. That's not okay. I'm not okay with that. And our teachers weren't okay with that either. And we locked arms. We have books in every kid's hands. We have more book tokens for the book vending machine. Kids are reading everywhere across this campus. And in winter, outcomes increased to 44% school-wide. Okay, I can do that. I can do that's a little better. I'm telling you right now, the foundation at this school has been set and things are changing. And now we see a preliminary data coming in that our kindergartners, 80% of them are reading at grade level right now. 66% of our first graders are reading at grade level right now. And all of the rest of the data that's going to come along will support the great work that's happening and the incredible teachers in this building and the way this community steps up when they're invited to join in. So thank you for everything you do to support our schools. I think I have maybe one more. Oh, we're going to be brave. I felt brave today. I was so nervous, a little sick to my stomach. I'm glad this day came because being brave is something we have to make a choice to do every day, to be our best, to be responsible, accepting, value others, and encourage. I'm encouraged by the work that you do, the volunteering that you do in our community. I want you to come join me at Green. Come see me again. We have a flag ceremony on Friday. We're going to honor our veterans again. So you can come join us at 9:10. And I'm going to turn it over to my other guest that's here.
Any questions from the board? Thank you for, I've known you for a long time. I know wherever you're at, kids are always and will be successful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Winchester. Megan, hi there. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm not the only one that's sick to my stomach. So good evening, everyone. My name is Megan Pirtle, and I am the principal at Winchester Elementary. This is my second year as principal, but I have been very lucky to be part of the Winchester team for 9 years. My career began out of state, and when I moved to Roseburg, I was fortunate to teach and then move into a learning specialist role at Winchester. So this school holds a very special place in my heart, and it is truly my home with my school family. I want to thank Green Elementary and Tammy for hosting the board meeting tonight. I appreciate you sharing your space. Tammy has been one of my mentors for many years, and I'm blessed to have her as my colleague. I'm always learning and growing with her by my side, along with others on cabinet. Next slide. Winchester has come a long way in its journey. Last year, my goal was to build the culture of the school and connect families with our school once again. This year, the shift in my goal is one that we have been longing for, which is a focus on instructional improvement. As my team began to mold our school improvement plan, we are excited to see how our goals continue with the alignment of the Roseburg Public Schools strategic plan. Next slide. As my leadership teams, as well as our entire staff, began to look at the vision for student learning, we all agreed upon the following statement. Winchester students achieve social, emotional, and academic growth through experiences of perseverance, risk-taking, and effort. This aligns with our strategic plan to provide instruction in a safe environment with the support of highly qualified staff that teach through best practices and have a leader that believes in what they do throughout their journey. This year, our ELA focus has been teaching with purpose with specific learning targets that are known to students. In math, we have focused on curriculum and teaching strategies to promote mathematical thinking and risk-taking, as well as classroom and culture in which students and staff feel safe, loved, and are happy and proud. Last year with our OSAS scores, we met or exceeded our ELA and math goals by 32% and 25%. So we have a lot of work set for us this year. Next slide. This year, with the shift of our focus, our goal is to increase those percentages by 3% each year with a 5-year goal of close to 10%. There will always be ups and downs that we can see throughout data, but knowing specific goals have driven our staff and students to continue to work hard on improving their practice with a growth mindset, as well as student achievement in mind. Next slide. This year, my leadership teams met to begin our support plans. And with that, our ELA, our 5D focus was on purpose, and we utilized that through our literacy framework. We shifted our master schedule that allowed for collaboration opportunities weekly, if not daily, continued or began in some grades with ERLA implementation, our strong focus on core instruction, as well as small group instruction. My learning specialist, who's getting an award tonight, work closely to train our instructional assistants and had well thought out small group time, as well as purposeful, strategic, and well-planned tier 3 interventions that included reading and some math. And she does a much better job than I did in that position. So I'm really proud of her. Next slide. With this shift, we found growth that can be seen from our fall data to our winter data. And currently this week, our students are finishing up their spring benchmarking, and I'm excited to see those results by the end of the week. Next slide. Our math support plan has been one that kind of gave me a little disequilibrium. I love reading and writing. I would write all day. So math is a little bit newer to kind of expand my mind. And when I was asked to do Math Studio as a new administrator, made me nervous, anxious, and I thought, well, why not? This has been actually one of the greatest growing moments in my career. My Math Studio teacher opened up her classroom and showed us that as a seasoned teacher, having a growth mindset is how you can see results. The entire process was wonderful to experience through the studio schools, getting to know and love each one of my students and watch them grow throughout the entire process, but then to also be able to share their practice with us going into their schools. So thank you for Grove Green and Hillcrest for sharing your students and learning with us as well. Next slide. My focus as a leader was to utilize the habits of mind and interaction as I celebrated teacher moves my staff were already doing, but also to dive a little bit deeper into the thinking. Students are growing in their mathematical thinking, conversations, and practice, and they're becoming more confident in their ability during math. Next slide. So we are, once again, seeing that shift in data, in mindset and growth as we reviewed our data. There's always room for growth and improvement, but so far I'm very proud of the work that we have accomplished this year because there is a lot of conversation happening throughout each classroom. Next slide. That looked a lot bigger on my computer screen. As stated before, our areas of focus have been purpose, So with that, we are designing purposeful lessons, collaborating and looking at the data. With curriculum and pedagogy, we are utilizing our adopted curriculum. We are looking at the math habits and interaction, and also developing our lessons of how we can bring those into those lessons. We had a math studio classroom, and our studio teachers and leaders have brought a lot of purposeful professional development back to our teams. And we are slowly working on getting into more learning walks. But this year, being able to visit other classrooms has been a really wonderful, eye-opening experience. And for our classroom environment and culture, we have tiered levels of support. Every classroom does a family meeting, and we have various school-wide positive incentives, including our Cub store. Next slide. As the year started to come to an end, my leadership teams have already met and began to mold our focus for next year, which I'm really excited to share. We aren't taking major shifts, but instead looking at what we are already focusing on, and just like in math, diving a little bit deeper. We want to continue to collaborate with having lessons based on specific purpose with targets, curriculum strategies, where teachers can shift those lessons based on student response to their understanding of the target, all while utilizing various assessment styles to continue to track student growth and make data-driven decisions that will drive their instruction. And also to continue our improvements on classroom culture and building the sense of family within each room. This year will be the 4th year Winchester will be hosting a summer program based on an SSA grant. With this grant, we can bring in our families to continue targeted instruction throughout summer within reading, writing, and math. Students come into summer learning joining their next grade. So if they're currently a 2nd grader, they go into 3rd grade. And they get to know their incoming teacher, which makes the start of the year a lot smoother. And they also get prerequisite skills that can help support them in their next grade. We also partner with Umpqua Valley Farm to School during this time, so students can learn the importance of gardening, farming, and understanding where our food comes from locally. And we would love for you to join during the summer if you are available. Next slide. We have many community partners, and this week with our open house, it seems like our community partners are growing. But these are some of the businesses that have supported families during the holidays, celebrating with our staff, or also have come into the school to help expand student learning. Next slide. Lastly, I want to thank the board and cabinet for all their work you do to understand our school system, get to know our school district family, and share in our celebrations as we continue to navigate through our educational journey. Since you are unable to come to Winchester this year, we would love for you to come to our spring open house tomorrow night. It is from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. During that time, we are opening up all classrooms to share student growth throughout the year. We have community partners presenting to meet with our families. We have fire trucks, tractors, a lot of other things. Amanda has done a really good job with this. Families can shop at our book fair. The STEAM team will be present to have their annual egg drop challenge utilizing a crane. And Wailani Island Grinds will be serving a free meal to all families. So we would love for you to be there. Again, thank you for the opportunity to truly have the best job. And I do have to share today in my daughter's kindergarten presentation, she had something that said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And she said, "My mom's job, the wolf job." So, and to hang out with friends. That was the other piece. And I do. I have the best family. So I want to continue to make a positive impact on our community. So thank you again.
Megan, before you go, I want to make sure any questions? Well, I know several of us do plan on coming tomorrow night, and I love all of our schools. Winchester does hold a special spot in my heart because my 2 girls went to Winchester and we spent a lot of time there. So it'll be nice to come back home. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you to Tammy and Megan, both excellent reports. And I would be very proud to have you as my kids as principals. So very, very nice. Okay, now we're gonna move into the meeting's all fun, but this is really the fun part. We're going to recognize students and staff. And I'm going to ask Director Emerson he's going to recognize the students. And when he calls the student's name, everybody that's connected, family, friends, teachers, everybody, please come up front. And then when we are done with the students and the staff, we'll take a short break, but we'd like all the winners to come back up front, and the board would like a picture with you. So, Stephen, you're up.
Thanks for taking care of the housekeeping. I was worried about that. All right, what you all been waiting for. So we were doing student and staff recognition, and then you guys can go risk your luck on the Autobahn out there. I wasn't gonna say anything, but man, that street, it's something. Anyways, all right. So first is Green Elementary School, Lizette Sabelos.
Come on, Mom. Come on, Dad. Come on, family.
And if you guys just want to stand over here.
Come on, green teacher. Come on.
Yeah, all staff, all family. We got to do a big group picture at the end. Alrighty. Lizette is an encourager. She has attended Green Elementary since kindergarten. During that time, she participated in our English language development program, is a classroom leader, and grew her skills of composure. Miss Johnson said, quote, Lizette loves Green and will greatly miss the people here. She has pushed through obstacles and does that with a smile and a word of encouragement for those around her. Lizette is a gifted student who thinks deeply about her classwork and always puts forth extra effort to do her best. Lizette, everyone at Green is so proud of you and can't wait to share in your next accomplishments. Congratulations, Lizette.
Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. Great.
All right, our next one will be Fremont Middle School, and it will be Hope Malaya Johnson. Alrighty, Hope is the type of student that every teacher wants in her classroom. She goes above and beyond what is asked of her in all her classes and serves as an excellent role model and leader for her peers. She is kind, thoughtful, positive, and passionate about her learning and always has a smile on her face. She has and it says all caps, huge heart and consistently seeks opportunities to make a difference in the school community. Hope pushes herself to be exceptional and her hard work pays off. She is quick to help others when they are struggling with understanding material, and she enjoys taking on new challenges. Always ready to lead the way on a project. Congratulations, Hope.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Alrighty, our next one is Winchester Elementary School and is Nico Pinangaska. You're good. Alrighty, Nico is an outstanding role model and is well respected by both staff and peers alike. Nico can always be counted on to act with integrity and respect and serves as an excellent example for others. His effort is commendable and he strives to do his best, does not shy away from a challenge, and is involved in extracurricular sports. He is a team player and very capable in all that he does. Staff at Winchester have no doubt that he can be successful in anything he sets his mind to, and they all wish him the best as he moves on to middle school. He will be missed very much at Winchester. Congratulations, Nico.
2, 3.
Alrighty, this one is Joseph Lane Middle School, and it's Lillian Rudolph. Alrighty, Lily is an awesome student who always focuses on quality work and helping others. Teachers can always count on her to be focused on class topics and looking to extend her learning through deeper questioning and conversation. Lily's desire to learn is at a level of maturity not often seen in middle school. On top of being a great student, Lily is a fantastic human being. She sets the example in class for how to treat others with respect and patience. Her quick wit and sense of humor always keep the staff on their toes. The future is bright for Lily, and she will excel at whatever she chooses to do. Congratulations, Lillian.
1, 2, 3.
Alrighty, last but definitely not least, Roseburg High School, Eliza Van Berger. Eliza is an exceptional student who always strives for excellence. She approaches her studies with a high level of motivation and dedication, which is evident in her active participation in classroom discussions and group activities. Eliza is also a great collaborator. She works well with her classmates, and her contributions always elevate to the level of learning for everyone. In the field of robotics, Eliza is a standout. She approaches every challenge with enthusiasm and a willingness to learn. Her hardworking nature is evident in her ability to take on the most demanding tasks, and she consistently delivers excellent results. Her passion for learning, dedication, and collaborative spirit make her a natural leader who inspires others to achieve their best. If she chooses to pursue a career in teaching, there is no doubt she will make a significant impact on the lives of her students. Congratulations, Lisa.
1, 2, 3.
All right, and I will turn it over to Director Minor for the crystal apples. I'm glad I don't have to handle those. They always scare me.
Here's the. Just like Principal Rasmussen said, she can't do it all by herself. So thank you, Steve. So from
Green Elementary School, we have Tabitha Norland, skills trainer. So everybody, come on up. This is all about family and friends and celebration. Tabby is the skills trainer at Green and supports students and staff in a multitude of ways. One click of the radio and Mrs. Norland is there to support a student who needs support emotionally, a sick child, or someone who needs a job during the day. She uses her time with a student to grow their skills to handle big emotions and to build their confidence. She is always willing to demo some dance moves. Ooh. Participate in a spirit day or put on a 40-pound dragon costume. You make Green such a special place because you relate authentically to every student and you care about every member of the Green community. Congratulations, Tabitha. And on her award, it says a heart filled with love for every member of the Dragon family.
One, two, three.
Yeah, you might as well stay up there. So next from Green Elementary is our second grade teacher, Debbie Wilkes. The heart of a school starts with the love that you share with your students and staff. Debbie is someone who truly cares for others. She uses positive strategies to build a classroom environment that is welcoming to all. When she isn't getting the results she wants, she is tenacious to find another way. This includes collaborating with specialists, collecting more data, and assessing the connection she has with the student. She does not give up. Her commitment to the school extends to her desire to learn more and to lead. She has become a dyslexia expert and is the school's science lead. Green employees couldn't be prouder to work with Mrs. Wilkes every day. Congratulations, Debbie. And her award says, a leader and learner who celebrates every child.
One, two, three. Thank you.
And now we're going to celebrate Winchester. And from Winchester Elementary, we have the librarian Heidi Geyer. You're going to love this story. When I read it, I almost cried. It was so sweet. I could envision myself in her shoes. Come on, everybody. Okay. Heidi is an alumnus of Winchester Elementary. When the library was being built, she would stare into the windows, waiting for the day the doors would open. This was when her love of books began to grow. She has celebrated most of her life at Winchester, 6 years as a student and 25 years as a librarian. Heidi has built a beautiful and welcoming library. She has helped students not only to learn the importance of literacy, but to enjoy and celebrate literacy. She serves as a valuable resource for teachers by recommending books to support instruction, supporting technological needs, planning and implementing reading programs, and is always encouraging and challenging students to grow in their ability in both the school and community. Whether she is teaching a class, greeting the students during morning duty, giving tokens to the book vending machine, facilitating a STEAM activity, or helping a student choose the perfect book, she can be seen with a smile on her face and a book in her hand. Heidi is creative, flexible, and a processor. She is the knowledge and wisdom that is part of the Winchester School family. And on her award, it says the guardian of Winchester's knowledge. Congratulations, Heidi.
2, 3.
And last but not least, person I have had a chance to get to know and love is Amanda Sandoval. She's a learning specialist at Winchester. Amanda Sandoval is a beacon of light when it comes to Winchester. She began her educational journey as an instructional assistant for 6 years and then was a classroom teacher for 11 years. She has a deep passion for students and their ability to learn in a way that makes them truly successful. Amanda was truly meant for the learning specialist position at Winchester. She has a dedication for a multi-tiered system of interventions, making data-driven decisions, bridging the gap in student learning, advocating for student needs, as well as supporting staff through their instructional journey. She is a vital member to the support team at Winchester, and her insight into decision-making has led Winchester to truly be a model of an RTI system. Amanda makes sure students are at the heart of every decision. Roseburg Schools is fortunate to have Amanda as part of the district family, and her award says making students the heart of every decision. Congratulations, Amanda.
You know, many times board members are asked, why do you serve on the board? You know, this is why our kids and our staff. That's all you have to know. And a kind of a shout out to Winchester. I'm looking around. So many of the teachers, I mean, they just look as young as they did years ago when my girls went there, but it just brings back the memories are just fabulous what they've done. And we could tell stories too, but we'll move on. But this is why we serve. So we're going to have student leadership report. We have 2 new folks. And so I'm going to let you introduce yourselves to us and then go ahead and give your reports.
Perfect. Thank you. Hello, I'm Rayleigh Travis, and I am a current freshman at Roseburg High School. I am currently involved with school sports, including soccer and golf.
Hello, I'm Taylor Sands. I am currently a sophomore at Roseburg High School. I am involved with FCCLA, NHS, and also here representing leadership with Rayleigh Travis. In leadership this week, we are dead in the middle of homegoing week and looking forward to the senior farewell assembly this Friday. Senior sunset is next Wednesday. We held our school-wide elections last week for our student council. Our new sophomore class representative is Carter Coster. Our new junior class representative is Ryan Wilson. Our senior class representative is Spencer Bingham, and our newly elected student body co-presidents are Annan Kohlberg and Sylvia Ekman.
Now on to the sports. Baseball and softball both concluded their seasons this past week with successful round 1 playoff games. Our boys lacrosse team has made it to round 2 of playoffs and is playing Wilsonville as we speak. Timothy Johnson ran a school record in the 3K last weekend at the OSAA 6A state championship in a time of 8 minutes and 27 seconds. That's a 4:30 mile pace for almost 2 miles. Our tennis team is sending a doubles team of Massimo Fellini and Esteban Weber Bernal to the state tournament. The golf team sent Tyler Popkin to state after 2 rounds of qualifications. Summer ball is in full swing for both our girls and boys basketball teams. They are both meeting 3 days a week for open gym and starting to build state caliber teams. Our volleyball team is also keeping our gyms full with preseason practices. 3 athletes from our track team signed with colleges this past week. Peyton Fisher is going to be running cross country and track and field for Pacific University next year. Nicholas Paris is going to be competing for UCC track and field next year, and Timothy Johnson signed with Westmont College in Santa Barbara. Gage Singleton committed to Oregon State University this past week to continue his wrestling and academic career.
Now let's talk about our school. The CNA program graduated 9 students this past week after working over 80 hours at Mercy. Congratulations to Caitlin Alexander, James Allen, Yasmin Barros Florence, Helena Garcia, Nevaeh Hernandez, Elena Howard, Annika Peterson, Kevin Porter, and Cameron Watsman. Yearbooks are arriving on Friday. They are 312 pages. Choir had their end of year concert last night, and band has their end of year concert tomorrow night in the Rose Theater. Currently, the RHS students are preparing for finals week.
Now to close. Not that any of us are counting, but there's 10 school days left until summer and only 5 school days left for our seniors. Everyone on campus is excited and so ready for summer to start. Thank you, everybody.
So we do have, for Hannah and Sylvia, that, we were gonna have a little special presentation, but you're here, so it's even as good. So we do have a thank you card that all the board members signed, and we want to thank the leadership folks, kids that came and gave reports. I think they really did an outstanding job. At times, you probably did better than board members, and so we appreciate that. So we'll make sure you get this. You want to. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Okay, at this time, I'd like to call Douglas County Commissioner Chris Boyce up to podium.
How cool it is that you guys take your board meetings on the road and get out in the communities. And I think I might know a guy that can help with the road. So if anybody remembers the old Carnes Road, though, this is a big improvement, but I can tell that we have a speeding problem out there and I know a guy, so I'll get on that for you. So I brought some good news and a little bit of a history lesson. Way back in 1952, there was a fire on the Callahan Ridge that was called the Hubbard Creek Fire, and it burned a county-owned tract of land that later became known as Britt Nichols Park. And when that happened, the trees that were there were salvaged, and there was a partnership formed between the Roseburg High School, or the school district, and the Kiwanis Club of Roseburg and the county. And the Kiwanis Club took high school students up there and replanted that tract of land. And the agreement said that the land would be managed for timber production, and that when those trees were harvested, the revenues, the net profits from that logging job would be shared with the school district and the Kiwanis Club. When I became a commissioner, we had a gentleman named Don Aker, who was a Kiwanis Club member, who made me keenly aware of this project immediately. And he had a vision of getting those trees harvested and using the Kiwanis Club portion of the money to donate to the Dornbeckers Children's Hospital. So we surveyed the trees, got the tracks ready, marked them, and waited a few years for the market to be right. And finally, all of the stars aligned. And last summer, we were able to go up there and harvest those trees. And the project's been complete and it's been replanted. And this is the check for the proceeds going to the school. So we were able to share the same amount with the Kiwanis Club. And tonight, it's my honor and privilege to be able to present to the school district a check for $106,552.34.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyce. I appreciate that. Would want the board, the community and staff to know we'll be making sure those dollars go back in to support our CTE, specifically our forestry programs here at our middle and high school. So thank you.
Yeah, and let us know how we can help. And I always get in trouble if I don't introduce my dog. Yeah. So this is a 2-year-old Springer Spaniel. Her name's Bella. She goes with me everywhere. And she typically takes over stardom wherever we go. So people are more interested in seeing her than they are me. Hold there. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Okay, so just a reminder, we're gonna take a break. Oh, and the dog's taking off. Yeah. We're gonna take a short break, and I would ask that all the winners, students and staff would come back up front as we take a picture with the board, and then it'll take about a 5-6 minute break, and then we'll start back up. And thank you for coming. You're more than welcome to stay. We're better than any TV show, so thank you.
Yeah, if the gavel hits, we're good.
Okay, let's call the meeting back to order. They ready? Are you guys all ready over there? Okay, I didn't know. This is time for public participation. You have a card? You have the card? Okay, so we have one. We have one, and Assistant Superintendent Michelle Nee well, it's actually your 2-minute timer is on the screen, so you're up.
Yep.
And thank you, by the way.
You're welcome. So you guys might want to record this because I'm thanking the school board and superintendent court. So my name's Kevin Murphy. I'm one of the roving subs in the district for Joel Lane, Quasi Fremont sometimes, and even RHS. And I even covered for Mrs. Rasmussen 5 times.
Yes.
I got my Legos on real quick. So anyway, so I'm appearing before you to extend my thanks and a gracious appreciation for allowing me to be employed by the Roseburg School District from August 2022 to the end of my contract here in June. I was one of your roving substitutes for certified teachers you allocated as a portion of your e-monies that was sent to your school district. So you approved my hire along with 2 others. So again, I appreciate that. So 3 wonderful years of creating relationships, seeing all sorts of teaching strategies, being under the tutelage of Sasha and Nikki and Darren Lamaka, and just being a part of a wonderful community. You might ask, what's a roving sub do? I cover certified teachers, but I also give potty breaks, cell phone breaks, go down and get our Tuesday treats that we have. All sorts of things that whatever made our community work. So essential breaks, I even covered IAs if we had a legal and an obligation for like people with cerebral palsy or something. They were absent, I helped them. I did a cafeteria monitoring recess. I did substitute supports for other things. The caveat I want to do from this is I would like to leave some suggestions. So do we have a strategic disciplinary plans in the works? Over at Grant Union, when the students come in next fall, they're going to be given their cell phones to somebody at the front door. The way they earn them back is through 90% attendance and having all their assignments in. So something about that. The other thing is about, please protect the people in the trenches, the teachers. Not saying it's not done at that building. I'm just saying, please have consequences, real ones that work, that are supported by you folks. Okay, because I just see too much homophobic stuff being thrown at staff, calling them the B word, shouldn't happen. And I don't know if there's consequences, it doesn't matter. I just want you to be aware of that. So I'm down to 0 seconds. Is there such
Did
a
not
thing
go
as a,
off.
what's that?
I said the alarm did not go off loudly,
Okay.
but yes, your
Okay.
time is up.
So the TikTok filters and the social media, it's got to be restricted. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
You wanna, take it for the record, we'd be more than happy.
Okay, yeah, I can leave this. So here I leave it. Just the last couple paragraphs of the.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and no more public participation, we'll move into review the members.
Thank you, Chair Cotton. There's been no adjustments in the agenda, so review is fine. And just again, appreciate the hospitality of Green tonight and all the participation. Thank you.
Any communications to the board?
Nope.
We're going to move into action discussion items. Approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'm sorry, who did the second? Okay, Mike did, sorry. So we have a motion second. Any discussion? Let's call for the vote. All in favor? Okay. Now it's time for Thomas to come up and check in with Phoenix. The Phoenix check-in, please. And your guest.
Thank you, Director Cotton, and it's a great pleasure to be back here after our last time in February at Fullerton 4. This evening, I have one of my staff members here new to our organization who will be introducing herself in just a moment, but this is our Dean of Students, Corey Bernard. First off, I just want to extend an invitation to the board. June 4th at Umpqua Community College, Jacoby Hall, we will be having our class of 24 commencement. So please, if you'd like to come, let me know. If you'd like to join me on stage and shake the hands of all the graduates, let me know. We can arrange that. And we are anticipating around 40 graduates. So without further ado, Corey.
Hello, I'm Corey Bernard. I'm the new Dean of Students at Phoenix Charter School. I've had around 13 years of teaching mathematics in Oregon. Been working for UCC for 10 years. I have had the pleasure of teaching the Roseburg students for the last 4 years. And now at Phoenix, I get to kind of get involved with the students a bit more, get to know them and kind of see the other side outside of the classroom. I'm going to be presenting Principal Birkin's report for her. So you guys should have a packet that you can reference. Phoenix Charter Schools worked really hard to increase our student engagement and improve our school culture. We have really focused on our attendance and our academics. If you look at our packet, you can see, if you want to go, do we have the slides? No. Oh, sorry. You should have them in your packet, our STAR data. So at Phoenix, we use STAR 360 to kind of assess our students. We assess them at the beginning of the year, mid-year, and at the end of the year. And looking at our data for math and language arts, you can see that we have decreased the red, our urgent interventions, and we've increased the green where we are at and above benchmark. So we are making that progress with our students. If you look at our dashboard of our data, you can see that our attendance has increased. We're trying, that 90%. So all students, we have increased from 17% to 21%. When we're looking at our students that are on track for graduation, we have increased by 3%, up to 40% of them now on track. And when we're looking at our students that are at benchmarks for ELA and math, we have increased our ELA almost 7%, up to 37%. And we have increased our math by around 6% up to 29%. So we are definitely making growth, and with our STAR 360 data, we are able to analyze our students, look at where we need to differentiate a lesson, and be able to target exactly where we need for our students to be successful and to graduate on time.
Thank you, Corey. So in your packet, we wanted to make sure you had the STAR 360 data up to date for the school year, but just want to take this opportunity at this quarterly report to dive in again to our instructional leadership overview, but also have some time making sure the STAR 360 testing system is understood by the board. I felt last quarter, the visit, there was some questions about this testing system, and I just wanted to make sure that the board was firmly aware of how we're assessing the students and the quality and rigor of that system. So again, our instructional leadership overview, we have personalized learning plans, excuse me. We foster a safe and welcoming environment in our building, and we're focused on future potential development. And in the Phoenix School, we're also very focused on having robust employment programs. Corey's now going to share again an overview of the assessment with the next slide, Michelle.
So with our STAR 360 data, what we have really is ways that we can use that comprehensive tool, and we can assess our students with the data. Teachers can look at it aggregated, and they can pull out specific targets for a student. They can create new lessons. They are able to really kind of hone in on what the student needs, where the student might need some more support, where the student is excelling. So within the STAR 360 data, it gives us a lot of resources that can help in the classroom, help make the students feel successful. And when they feel successful, they start to show that success in their data.
So next slide, please, Michelle. Thank you. And so you can just see the program. We took a long time to select this program late in the last charter contract, and it started up early in this charter contract. The system is used widely in many schools across the nation. It's what we believe a quality program, and what we've experienced. It gives us rich data. We're now testing 3 times a year. And next slide, please. So how the assessments work, they're computer adaptive learning. So they are a test that changes based on the student's responses. You know, myself, I was filling in bubble sheets from Iowa, and this is a completely, 21st century test that's following the student's needs, and can give us a score up to what's in the system called 12.9. So we know if they're beyond high school. It is a short testing time, which really is an advantage to get a quality sample, and we get good feedback. Today, I was working directly with one of our SPED educators, Marie Leary, and she was obviously had a little bit more energy than normal, which is unusual for Leary, as she goes by. She's a quite excitable educator, and what it was her STAR 360 data. She was getting data from her students. She's working with some of the higher needs students in the building, and she's seeing growth this year, multiple grade levels, even since the winter assessment. So the system is actively used, and it is creating some strong positive energy among the educators. Corey has the last slide here.
So with our assessment implementation at Phoenix, we are giving our STAR 360 assessments at the beginning of the year to get our baseline data, mid-year, and then at the end of the year. So we're doing these regular assessments. As Director McGregor said, these are very short assessments. From them, we are data driven, so we can analyze the students' data. We can pull out strands based on standards in ELA and math. We can figure out how to focus on specific standards, and we can use that to make some personalized instruction for the student. So the STAR 360 has a lot of supports in there. You can use that data and the program where we can set goals for our students, and it kind of helps support the teachers so that they are able to implement a rigorous learning environment so that we can monitor those students and reach those goals, plan interventions, what we need. We use this and we collaborate with the teachers. We like to kind of see what everyone's doing with our cross curriculum, and just being able to kind of monitor where our students are at immediately. So the STAR 360 data does give us an immediate report, and students are able to kind of cater it towards what each student needs. And that's all we have.
I have a couple questions before I open it up. I noticed that Kat put the report together. I haven't seen her for, where is Kat?
We have a big event at school right now. We have a garden party that she has been planning for quite a while. And so she is on campus hosting the garden party. So I stepped in to help. The garden party wasn't in my.
Okay. And then I have another couple of things because I bring this up quite frequently. We've asked for minutes from your meetings. I haven't seen. Yeah, your board meetings. I haven't seen minutes for a long time.
Director
So-
McGregor?
Thank you, Chair Cotton. Yeah, I will take a note of that we need to remedy that immediately. We'll get right on that.
Okay, well, the year's about over, but, and I'm just curious, are you guys required as of July to have your meetings, board meetings live?
Yeah, our meetings are advertised and
No, that's not
available.
what I'm asking you. Are they recorded and going to be on some type of platform?
We do them on Zoom if we'll get them recorded. Absolutely.
Well, I think as of July, you could check into it. I think they have to be, I think that's the new state law. So if we're not going to get minutes, then we can go back and watch, because you are our 13th school. We'd like to know, what's going on. If that's, I think that's only fair. Questions to the board?
The Data 360 looks like it's a great program. I like that it gives you information specific with each student so that you can address that. What I have an issue with still is the results or the reporting of that. So when I'm looking at 360 compared to the, that's where that paper went. Yeah. Due to what we have from the state, from the testing, or we should say, I was looking for the ESSA accountability data details. It's hard for me to compare those. So, and because when I look at Phoenix, it's still very dismal, and I can compare all the other schools and see where we're at. And I know that we're comparing apples to apples, but when you're bringing me data from 360, it's hard for me to mesh that with what our state requirements are. That being said, sometimes I question your data, not because on this sheet that you have in your report, I went back to thank you. I went back to your September report. And the historical data, which I would think should be the same, like for T3 of 22-23 of attending 90%, that information is different from what you reported today. We have, 3 different columns and even information down here that should be historical data, and the numbers and the dates should be the same, I would think, but they're all different. So that makes me distrust reporting because the historical data is different across the board. So just a heads up on that. I don't know.
No, thank you, Director Minor. I appreciate your candor and your sharing of your genuine feeling. There is a difference in the data from the May reports to the August reports. The May report is a sample of the data as of May 1st of every school year. The August data is a sample through the end of the school year. So that is the difference between those two sets of data for those reports. The goal has been to have similar data dashboards at similar quarterly reports throughout the length of the contract. We worked with members of cabinet and the board early in the charter 5-year period to develop the data dashboards. And so if there have been migrations in the data, I personally author the notes on the data dashboard. And if you would note on the May dashboard, it notates that that is the data as of May 1st. And then the data in August is a comprehensive for the school year, is my understanding why data may migrate from May and in August, if that makes sense. We don't have the full school year when we go to make the data dashboard, if that makes sense. We try to get as best available data because that was another concern that was provided to me, that I want best available, most recent data. So I've tried to get absolutely most recent and available data.
Okay, the way I'm understanding it is when you've got a school year as T3, the school year of 22 through 23,
Correct.
this over here says T3, 22 to 23, and it's a different one. So I'm taking a comparison from September of last year.
Correct.
And to me, the way I understanding it is that this is historical data for comparison purposes.
Correct.
So anytime I look at T3, 22 through 23, attending 90% of the time, that column, it should always be that on all subsequent reports, is my understanding. Is that not correct?
Again, the data, I was wanting to showcase what the data was on May 1st and what was on May 1st. And so the data rolled over from one year to the next, but I appreciate your feedback, and perhaps we can follow up after the meeting about this and try to see clarity on this item.
So I'm just going to be frank, right? And just perceptionally from what I'm seeing, there's a lot of dialogue over the very particulars of data. When we were at the UCC board, joint board meeting, the state scores made sense. And it's obvious there's an issue over at Phoenix, and it's obvious to me that from my communication with staff here, that we've reached out to work with Phoenix over the issues. So, I mean, I whatever program you're using, you want to get into semantics about how the year matches up or whatever. You know, when we were looking at the state testing, it's obvious that Phoenix could use some help. And it's obvious that we've helped out. And I think that bridge needs to be worked on your guys' end.
That's excellent feedback, Director Hammerson. Yes, the state testing data, we have a system for implementing the state testing system. When the contract was created, it was remarked early by the board in the past that the data highlights the 8th graders and the juniors, but not all students in the school. Therefore, with this period of contract, 20 to 25, we went to a unique data system that is utilized for all students, utilized at multiple venues in the school year. I'm happy to work with central office staff more acutely and directly to have our state testing achieve the current a change in the current status. This is news to me that we're in need of help. And I thank you for highlighting that for me at this time.
Okay, any further comments, Dan?
So as charters, then you are using a different assessment tool, this 360. This is not the STAR testing that we are doing in our schools. You said it's shorter, it's, shows the gaps better individually, where the student individually has, falls into a category of a gap. I mean, it's hard then for us to compare numbers. If you're using a totally different assessment tool.
I'm going to try to unpack your comment here. We are using the state assessment tool. I'm not aware of another assessment tool the district's using. We have been very open and transparent with the district at all occasions about the testing system we're using. At the time of authoring the charter contract, this testing system was discussed. It was encouraged to use. I'm now gaining feedback from the current board that there would be a desire to move towards a different testing system, perhaps. I'm open and available to do that to assist the board with their task, but I'm simply implementing what the board in 2020 asked me to do, and so we are doing state testing, and we are also doing this testing as well to assist our instructional leadership team.
Okay, this is on top of
Correct.
doing the state. Okay.
Yes, sure.
So the STAR 360 is it is data that the teachers can use, and it does align with our Oregon State testing. It is a tool for the teachers so that they can figure out how they can improve our testing scores. So we also do our state testing, just like the high school and the middle schools. This is just something that we're doing in addition to that to kind of build those students, give them more opportunities so that they can get more familiar with the online testing for the state testing, because that's not used a whole lot except their 8th grade and their junior year. So with the STAR 360, they are doing it every single year, multiple times a year. In intervention classes, we can implement it even more. We can find targeted areas. So the hope is that as our 360 data improves and our red zone it gets smaller and our green zone gets larger, it will align hopefully with the state testing. So this is something to support our teachers and to support our students in addition to the state testing.
So how long have you been using 360?
My understanding is we've been using 360 actively since we returned to instruction in building. There has been concerns and reservations from the board over the term of the contract about the volume of testing. We have worked rigorously with Principal Berkins to increase the volume of testing and getting all students tested at multiple occasions during the school year.
Oh, was this year you started this, or is this?
No,
been going
we've
for-
been, this is probably year 3, maybe 4.
Okay, so you've been using it for 3 years. So you've been using that data to help your teachers. So it's basically a tool for your teachers, not necessarily. What I don't understand is how does it align? How come the numbers would be so different than the state? I don't understand. Is it a different form of testing? Different questions? How does that work?
It is different questions. The STARS 360 is very similar to our state testing where it's computer adaptive. It does not have the writing portion like the ELA portion of the state testing. And it's more used as like a tool to help the teachers. It is kind of hard to correlate the data because the state testing is done 8th grade year and junior year. And so you're not seeing kind of that snippet in between, whereas the STAR 360, we're trying to see that growth every year. So ideally, we started using this about 3 or 4 years ago. So we should hope that we can look at those students who started it in 8th grade and compare the data when they graduate to kind of see how those correlate. We haven't been using it long enough to see the actual correlation, but the STAR 360 has been used in other districts. Like I know they've used it in Sutherland School District, and it is a good marker to kind of figure out where your students are and how they're performing, and kind of a good predictor. And the more you use it, the more accurate you can get.
Okay, I'm gonna have Jared.
Yeah, thank you. So appreciate this. Just I think for the board to realize, so there are, I think it's important probably for also for Phoenix to realize. So a couple things real quick, points of clarification. The data, we're talking about 2 kind of data sets here, right? So the summative data what we call the OSAS data. That's the data we looked at most recently in the accountability reports. There are other assessments we can do that are kind of prescriptive or diagnostic that let us know what adjustments to make. So we have our own set of those that we use. I mean, we was talked about tonight, Tammy and Megan both mentioned things we're using toward that. The concern I think the board's addressing is the disparity between the data seen here and the OSAS data. So recently, we reviewed with the board the accountability details, in which in every subcategory, Phoenix showed up as a level 1. And so I think the question here is the questions about this assessment. If I want to maybe summarize what the board is saying is, why is there not alignment between those two things? That's probably question number 1. The other thing I would just mention here was a mention about the board asking for more rigorous testing. To clarify, the board, I believe, has asked that all students be tested. So it's not more rigorous testing. It's an expectation of the board and the state that we test all students. And so just to clarify, it's not about testing more rigorously. It's about making sure all students are assessed. So hopefully so again, Director Kremitz, we have also do interim assessments to get an idea of it, make an adjustment with kids. The intent of this assessment is it is adaptive, like the OSAS is adaptive, to give staff an idea of where students are at. I think for Phoenix, the question that maybe Director Hammerson was asking was, why do we have a delta in that? And it's probably a discussion for another time, but we're seeing a pretty vast delta in those two things. And the accountability report shared with the board last board meeting, in every single category across growth and achievement, with every subcategory, Phoenix was a level 1, which is 10 percentile or below in the state. And I think maybe some of the questions result from looking at green and blue on this assessment and looking at another data set around OSAS.
So I'm horrible with analogies, but I'll try. I have to deal with this in my career job all the time. I don't want you to get the impression that the school board is demanding more and more and more testing on the students. That doesn't seem to be the problem. The way I see it at work and the way I'm seeing it here is icing the cake versus baking the cake. I don't want to ice the cake 1,000 times if there's a balloon inside. And it seems like baking the cake is the issue here. The real issue here is these kids need help. And our OSAS reporting looks a heck of a lot better than Phoenix's. And I've had conversations with Jared about it. He said that, he's willing to reach out and partner with you guys. I think you guys need assistance in baking the cake. I don't want 1,000 reports, and we're going to look at statistics and how can we, figure out some better way to see where the students are at. I want the students to learn and be better. And it seems like it's a baking the cake problem. It's not an icing the cake problem. I don't want any, as far as I don't know what the rules are in terms of state testing, how many you're required to do, but it should be however many we're required to do, or I don't know, the charter is different.
We do the same.
Yeah. So
We
to me, it's like, do the standard required testing, but obviously Roseburg High is doing a lot better on the state reporting. So, that I feel like that is the bond that this is where the pain point is, right there. I don't care about extra reports or more reports or analyze the students 1,000 times. So that's just my 2 cents.
Further? Okay. Right, thank you. Earl, I'm going to turn this over to you for your introduction and
And then
if
I'll
that's-
turn it over to the person that
okay,
I got
that's
introduced.
okay.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm pleased to introduce Susan Miller, sorry, from the spent most of the day with her. It's like I didn't forget. From the Woolpert Group. Some of you guys that have been on the board for a while remember the firm as Cooperative Strategies. They've done facility assessments for us. They've did previous long-range facility plans, and now we're doing an update to that long-range facility plan. At your place, you have a copy of the presentation. And with that, I'll turn it over to Susan.
Okay, green, I guess is on, correct? Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you very much for this evening and taking time. I know it's towards the end of the year and you guys have gone through quite a bit this year. So give a little grace for another 20 minutes or 50 minutes or so. And I hope we can have a good conversation. Just to give you a kind of a timeline of why I'm here at this time. Oregon, of course, as you know, provides the opportunity for you all to do long range plans, and they help to pay for that work. And that work is, as Cheryl mentioned, is being updated this year. And so we wanted to talk with you about what that means, and that I'll be back in the autumn to talk with your community about what that long range plan is going to be looking like. But we really want the board this evening to kind of lean into the work that we're doing with you guys, give us feedback, insight as to questions that you might have, or areas of interest that we need to be looking at in terms of facility needs. You guys walk you walk your schools, you go and have your school board meetings at the different locations. So you're very familiar with your facilities. And so I'm hoping that we can have the dialogue about what you identify as needs and how it can complement the work that we're doing with the community come this autumn. So with that, we can move along to the overview of where we are. Your strategic plan, of course, is focused all around children and what experience you want them to have and what you want them to be able to do as they walk out of your schools from 12th grade, what career paths and opportunities they're going to have. Well, facilities support that learning. And so a part of that whole conversation is, are the facilities that we have right now in the spaces and in the conditions that support the learning. And your team has done an amazing job of maintaining your buildings, but I think, as you all well know, they're a little bit older perhaps than some others. And so, we need to kind of take good care of them. And some have greater needs than others. And some also, you might want to be thinking about, how do we add on to facilities or complement the buildings to continue to support the opportunities you want for your kids, such as the CTE work that you guys have been doing with UCC. And I commend you on that as well. Superintendent Burden told me a lot about the work that you all are doing, and it's exciting. You guys are kind of ahead of the game, and you should be commended for that, for focusing kids on opportunities beyond college or high school. So we'll move along. I want to just go through kind of like terms and process real quickly. We'll look at district-wide enrollment, because that's certainly a factor. How many kiddos are you serving in your schools? And we just finished the update to the enrollment report. I guess we finalized it last month or back in April, right? So that's current for the numbers that came out in October of 23. We'll give a quick overview of the facilities and your portfolio, and then we'll look at investment considerations. And the investment considerations, honestly, is the part that I hope we can have the dialogue, because those are kind of dated information. They were done 2 years back, 3 years back, and certainly investments have been made in your facilities. You might have different priorities. And so I'm hoping that's just the start of the conversation, kind of priming the pump a little bit. So as we move into long range plan, I'm not going to read all of this off. You guys are able to read documents just fine, but I'm sure that we touched on what is long range plan. You're really thinking about next 5 to 7 years, how you reinvest your dollars into your facilities to support learning for kiddos. We also want to be looking at what kind of data we look at. Well, it's everything from the facility condition of your building, the enrollment, how many kiddos are being served in your different schools. Is it growing? Is it contracting? Is it shifting? Are you having different student populations in different parts of the district that you need to be cognizant of? And are we serving them in those spaces? How it aligns with the strategic plan, which is what we started with, right, at the very beginning of the meeting, focusing on that. And then key questions: are the facilities we operate the ones that should continue to operate? If they are, how do we continue to support that learning for those children? And what about the history of your district and your community? What do we need to be focusing on to continue to serve kiddos, to kind of stay in line with the traditions and the community desires? So moving on to the next page. Definition of terms: gross square feet. That's pretty self-explanatory. The facility condition index takes your what we would call the deficiencies and or identified priorities for investments in your buildings, and we divide that by your current value of that facility. replacement value. So that's not to say that we would be building a brand new school. It would be basically how we would rebuild that facility as it stands right now. So that's how you get your facility condition index. And the range of the facility condition index can go from 0, which is brand new, right? It's a brand new school, up to 100% red, which means, oh my gosh, you really need to replace this building because it's falling apart. And then anything in between, you're talking 20%, 30%, what that target might be. So the school district I came from, wow, it's a race. Yeah, that's exciting. Maybe that'd be more fun than my presentation. We could bet. The school district I come from, where I was a school board member, our target for the investments that we made was to bring our FCIs down to below 20%. And that was across 155 different facilities. And so that was a big task, but that was the goal and objective that we had in place for looking at our long range plan and for our facility capital improvements. The program capacity, this is a kind of a funny one. So when we talk about capacity of a school, when the school is designed, it's envisioning X number of children in a classroom, and you're going to carry that. Let's say you have 4 grades or 4 classrooms per grade, and you're going to have 20 kiddos allowed to be in those grades and those classrooms, and you multiply that across your 6 grades you're serving K through 5, and that's going to give you your capacity of your building. Well, then comes along, we have 500 kiddos that can be served in that building. Then comes along, well, you know what? Maybe we're down to 2 or 3 classrooms that might not need a full-time staff member necessarily because we don't have those 20 kids or those 30 kids, but we do need it for special ed because we have an increase in special ed population. And so we still need a special ed teacher, but we're only going to be serving 6 children in that classroom. And so your program is serving 6 children in that classroom, plus all the other kiddos. Well, you've now gone down from a 500 size class or 500 capacity down to 494 kids that you can serve because of your programming. Well, that adjusts depending on how you are serving your kids and what program. So a 500 school capacity could really shift down to 400 in program because of what type of program you are providing to your kids. So program capacity is something that we look at to see how we're serving the students in that building. The other side of that, however, is when you start thinking about capacity and the utilization factor of your building is, let's say your program capacity is now 250 kids and you have a 500 capacity building. Well, you're now utilizing your building at 50%, and that gets expensive because you're not using the building the way it's supposed to be used, and you don't necessarily have enough students in that building to really be financially viable to support that. So we look at all of those different factors. How many kids should we be serving in that class, in that school? How many are we serving? And what's the actual utilization factor? Because it costs money to keep those buildings in viable, in good condition. And depending on how many kiddos you have is a factor you need to be thinking about because our resources are finite. So that's a lot, but it is important to be thinking about. So going on to the next page, this is really busy and it's a fun little slide that I like. And it just talks about all the different elements that go into thinking about how you are actually serving kids in your classrooms. And so you're, I'm not going to call out all of the different bubbles, but it really has you think about, wow, what do the teachers need in their classroom or the principals need in their schools to be able to serve students well? And that can be everything from, the right equipment for our SPED children. Our special ed children need certain equipment pieces to, do we have enough natural light coming in through our buildings? Do we have enough, security features in our buildings? I walked schools today. You guys putting in all the vestibules for security purposes. That's important to have. So it's all the warm, safe, and dry components, as well as all the other features that you want to have as components in your facilities. So it's a slide to be thinking of. The next slide, if we can go into beyond components, is the overview of this process. So what we did a few years ago was we came through it and we had a couple people assess all of your buildings. And what they did is they identified, as I said before, the deficiencies and or priorities. What do we need to be fixing? What's immediate fixing? What do we have to do 2 or 3 years out? And what's a 5 to 7 year plan? Kind of like how you plan your house. When am I going to replace my roof? When do I have to redo my driveway? When do I have to redo my backyard? All those kinds of features. If you think about how you rebuild, you're thinking about investing in your house, we do the same thing with school buildings. So we did the assessments. We then, I guess it was about 3 years ago, we came back and did the planning part and worked through priorities at that time. And we're coming back now to reevaluate, okay, are we still on the same track and do we have a different direction of investments we want to consider? We look at the background data, as I said, the enrollment, our building facilities, our deficiencies, our needs, our capacity utilization, and then we go into defining what the options might look like and taking that input from you all. What are your priorities? What are you guys thinking about? And being able to go back out to the community and say, this is what the board is thinking of. This is what the facility information tells us. Okay, community, can you talk with us about what your priorities are? Do they align with what the board is focusing on? Do they align with warm, safe, and dry? Are you happy with where, the baseball fields are? Are you happy with playgrounds? Are you pleased with the safety features what about the fencing? All of those kinds of things come into conversation through survey and through community dialogue. We also want to make sure it's aligned with your educational framework, which you guys have been talking about this evening with a couple of your principals that came forward. And then we bring that all together after the survey work, after looking at the data, and we say, okay, to superintendent, these are 3 or 4 of the options that we're looking at in terms of investment opportunities. What say you? And the team says, whoops, the team says, well, we really should go back and talk it over with the board. We come back to the board and say, these are the priorities, the options from you guys, from the community and survey work. What do you think? And then you are able to help us finish framing it so that we can go back out and say, okay, 3, 5 years, 7 years from now, where do we want to be and how are we going to get there? And so that's how that whole process works. So moving on to the next page, all these beautiful colors. The gray is just that first part that is collecting the data, which we've already pretty much done with the help of Cheryl and Superintendent Corden and Tracy and Crowd and Danielle. They've all been helping us collect information. All of those red or maroon, I kind of like the maroon color. Those are updates and discussion points and really kind of vetting through the information. The blue part is where we interface with you guys throughout the process. And then we have the gold is focusing on how we engage with the community and how we start to refine the work that we do with all of you together. Going through the next part, next slide, please. Thank you. There we go. Thank you. So the facility master plan is really a complement as a strategic plan directing the major capital decisions you guys are going to make or do make pretty much on an annual basis over the next 5 to 10 years. So what do? We take into consideration the population, your growth, changes in the children that you're serving, facility conditions, as well as the capacity considerations. We also look at systems. How are your roofs doing? How are your walls? How are your floors? How's the carpet? Those are the big system considerations that we incorporate as well, which I kind of touched on with the FCI calculation. Then we also look at how are we serving your programs. So for example, your CTE programs. You have a great relationship from what I understand you're building with UCC, doing advanced manufacturing, doing advanced health. Are our facilities, and I'm sure you're going to do more, so are our facilities really supporting that education opportunity for kids? And so is that in alignment as well? And so I did put at the bottom, we'd like to think about what can be, what your relationship will be with UCC in the future. We just want to make sure we are in step with you guys in that space. And then, of course, the efficient use of spaces and if changes are being made, we want to ensure that all children have access to great learning spaces from a parity perspective or a parity lens. Not every school is going to be exactly the same, but we want to make sure kids have access to great learning spaces consistently across the district. So if we go to the next slide, please. These are all the different considerations to be thinking about, which I hope when we come back, if we don't touch on everything tonight, that we are able to kind of have the same dialogue in a few months after you have a little bit of time to think. Talk with principals, talk with family members, talk with your community. You guys are some of the most important nodes, of course, being able to kind of bring people together and find out what their hot buttons are or what their areas of interest in terms of investing in your facilities. Everything from building age to instructional programming to, do we have the right learning environment for all kids, et cetera. So those are just the critical components to be thinking about. If we go on to the next page then, after investment, so how does this portfolio support your strategic plan? You guys have policies in place, that as a board, but I'm going to start at the bottom. Your community expects you as a board to kind of be responsible for directing how you're going to be investing dollars. You guys get all the information in terms of reports every month. Different departments come and speak to you about their needs. And so the community elects you and trusts you as board members to be making informed decisions about how best to invest dollars. We also know that money is finite, resources are finite, talent is finite. So we have to be very judicious with how we spend the dollars. And so going up into the data side, are we using data effectively and efficiently to make informed decisions? Funding, do we understand exactly what the dollars are available to us, from grant dollars to, do we ask for certain bonds? Do we ask for certain money being put aside on an annual basis? All of those factors go into that funding component. And then are we in line with your policies? As a policy governance organization, that's kind of critical that you're aligned with that. And so that ties into your strategic plan that you guys built last year. And the facility planning all ties into using all of that information and how we put together the plan and the options for your consideration. If we go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So let's talk briefly about enrollment. Cheryl and Superintendent Corden kind of were critical in helping us gather all this information in terms of historic, as well as then starting to think about what's happening in your area in terms of opportunities of growth. So we want to just touch on that real quickly. If I go to the next slide, this is your historic enrollment by grade. And so I'm going to walk over here. Is that okay? Can you still hear me? Okay. Sort of.
We can't hear out.
Oh, can I carry this? Oh, awesome. Okay. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Okay, so what I did is as you noticed, I boxed off 2019-20 through 21-22. And the reason I did that is our COVID weird blips, right? That's just, who recovered depends on when you got back to school, when schools opened again. So if you look at school districts across the country enrollment, that is your big rectangle of years, those 3 years that are just crazy town, right? So, so you will notice, of course, that enrollment, if we just look at your pre-K and your kindergarten in 2019 to 20, look at your kindergarten. It was 448 in the beginning of the 2019-20 year. It dropped to 370 the following year, and then went back up again to 399 and starting to kind of stabilize again. So you guys are stabilizing. A lot of school districts kind of went down and just kept going.
I don't want to interrupt you, but
Oh, that's okay.
I have that. I think that's important for us to know, since you do
right
several districts. Is this pretty universal around?
Yeah, what we have seen actually is kids aren't coming back, and that's the scary thing across the board. If you look at LA, I don't know if you guys follow some of the, I follow some of the big school districts. I read all that stuff. They've lost thousands of children that are just not coming back. New York has lost thousands of children that are not coming back. And so you guys have certainly had that blip, but you're not experiencing. The school district I served, we lost 10,000 children over 5 years. We went from 77,000 children that we served in our district managed schools to 67,000 children. We had to close 23 schools.
They're going.
That is a great question. A lot of kiddos, you see some homeschooling has grown significantly. You also see that some, the Catholic schools have benefited from it because they opened. And so people went there and stayed. People have moved to states where they opened up schools and I mean, California had a lot of kids that or families that moved out. And so we're seeing, especially at the high school level, they just don't come back either. Like 11th grade and 12th grade, they drop and don't come back. So that's something to be aware of, right? And just as another notice is that why the different colors of red and blue. So the darker color indicates that is the year of the highest enrollment in that grade. So if I'm looking at, for example, 6th grade, and I go over to 2019-20, that is the deepest red in that grade level. And that was 503 kids. And then, it dropped off to 407, but you can still see the darker colors reflect the higher level of enrollment. The blue, the darker the blue, the lower the number of kids that were in that grade level by that year. And then what we also do is we travel across by cohorts. So if you start with 3rd grade in 2014-15, and you kind of go across to 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, you can see how they matriculate through your school district. And you can also see that oftentimes in the transition years into middle school, we lose children, and that's not uncommon for you to have a drop in the transition years into middle school and then they come back in high school. It's a middle school Lord of the Flies kind of phenomenon in some ways, where people just disappear from the middle school and then they come back. And they may go to, in some places we've seen people, you guys don't have this issue as much, but we see them go over to charter schools and then come back, or we see them go to private schools and then come back, or we see them go homeschool and then come back. But that middle school transition is not uncommon to see a drop and then a increase in 9th grade. So any questions about that? Okay. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so it's hard for me to talk at that thing, so I'll just kind of hang over here. So this chart shows you what the population is looking like over the next 5 years and anticipating how growth is going to be taking place throughout your district. So what we're looking at is the gray colors or the blues. As you can see on your page, it shows you what the growth or decline is going to be looking like. And then as you increase in color up to the red, that's where your growth is going to be taking place. So you can see some of that is down towards the southern part of your district. There's a little bit of red happening. And then there's a little bit of orange over towards the high school area. And so there is some growth that is taking place in your district. You're not seeing a huge decline in all school age kiddos. I think we're looking at overall a decline of about over 5 years, about 35 children. The interesting thing is that when we go to the next page, and we're looking at projected enrollment, you can see in this case that we're starting to see that there is a it's stabilizing, but it is declining over time. So that when we are looking at about 54 or 5,500 children next year that you'll serve across your district, we're looking at about 1,000 kiddo drop over 10 years, just because of birth rates, number of kiddos that are matriculating into your schools. And then if we can go just to the next page real quickly. You can see how as I said, it's pretty stable, but you lose a couple, 100 kids every year. That over 10 years, it starts to drop down. Yeah.
So I would agree with that. I mean, you're the professional, you know what you're looking at. But something inside me says that as we grow our CTE program, which is amazing and it will change, I feel that our numbers and our enrollment will go up.
And so I think that that's important to note, and that you kind of want to do a testing of that, right? You want to check your enrollment. When it gets out 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, it's noisy, right? Your your data is closer to who you are within a year or 2 or 3. And that's why the enrollment is done every, 3 years, 5 years, and see how you're doing. Are you retaining your kids, right? Are you giving them those pathways so that they stay and potentially people come to your district, right? Because you're giving a pathway that others are not. As we were talking about this morning, Superintendent, that is something that some people are just ignoring, that kids want something else besides just college. And you have that partnership with UCC that's unique. And so how does that play, or how does that turn out 3 years from now, 5 years? Do you start to see kids being retaining and staying in your district? And I think that's a very valid point to be aware of and keep tabs on, right? To keep your thumb on it. When you go to, do you have any other questions about that? Okay.
Susan also just mentioned, I know we talked today, Susan, about the action of the joint committee. There was a joint commission on the UGB swap.
Right.
And I think that should be finalized, hopefully within about a month. And we're hopeful that that swap will happen. So we're talking about 350 homes to start down
Right.
there with a potential 700. So
Right.
again, we really haven't had any growth within the city limits
Right.
since 2009. I don't think any building permits have happened. So it's been kind of constricted. So that could also be a shift in younger families potentially. Many families can't find housing, and so that could change things as well.
Right. So I think that is a critical part, is that you keep your eye on that enrollment and adjust accordingly. Okay, so if we go to the next page, please. So this is the interesting, we talked about this as well, Superintendent Corden, about the change in transfers out of the district, and that can shift to bringing kids back into the district. So you'll notice that back in 2018, 19, 2019, 20, you lost a few kids. About 30 children left, or I shouldn't say left, but went to other options, other schools outside of Roseburg. This point from 21, 22 to 23, 24, you have about 170 children that are opting out of your school district. That can also help your enrollment. How do you retain them and bring them back? Or how do you keep them so that they're not opting out and going someplace else? So that has an impact on what that's going to look like in the future as well. So if and when those CTE programs become even more exciting for kids, then we don't lose them necessarily. They stay. They may come back, or they don't walk away and leave. So that's something to keep our eye on as well.
I think this is a challenge to the board, and of course, everybody we work with. Jared and I were talking. I agree with him that the majority of the transfer routes are virtual school kids.
Right.
We think.
Right.
Well, you can't do CTE classes virtual school, so we just have to what the direction we're going, UCC. We just got to put pedal to the metal and get it done.
And let parents know too, right? Because sometimes at least my children would not necessarily come home and tell me everything that was going on in school and that was available to them. Because why would I tell my mom that? But I will say that my son actually, they started an advanced manufacturing pathway. And he drove up to Boulder and worked at a place called Rio. And they did design. I'm not very good at this. So they designed those, whatever they put on F-14s that target. Yes, thank you. Laser guider. That's what he did for 2 years. He couldn't really tell us exactly what he did, but that helped him immensely. And that kept him, good kid, smart kid, but just was not necessarily loving all of those AP classes that I was forcing him to take. And so the deal was, hey, if I get to do this in advanced manufacturing and it was STEM and it was hands-on, and he met all sorts of people across all socioeconomics and ages and the whole 9 yards. It was the best experience I can honestly say that he had in high school. And I'm excited for those kids that you're getting them that opportunity, because it was a lifesaver for him. It really was. So I'm in agreement, I guess is what I'm saying. So going on to the next page, we don't need to keep talking about enrollment, but I did want to highlight that area that you had talked about in terms of 700 homes. At the very end, we do comment on that just to keep your eye on it. Once again, just to make sure that if they're, you're not going to get 4 children out of every house like we did in the 60s, but 2 can be great, and that helps with our enrollment levels. And you might get 4, but yeah, it could be. Exactly. If you want to buy this home, you must have 4 children. Yeah. Yeah. I think the Japanese might want to try something like that as well, but that's happening across the world. If everybody's nobody's having babies. So, okay. We can talk politics about that a little bit later. So let's talk about your facilities real quickly. If we go to the next page. Okay, just a real quick concept for us when we're talking about facilities. And this also goes to houses and things like that. But what we do is we look at saying, hey, all of your different components in your facilities and your buildings, you have to be thinking about them. There's systems from your walls to your floors, to your ceilings, to your doors and windows. All of those are quote unquote systems. And over time, it's important to think about how you're going to replace them, fix them, redo them, et cetera. So kind of the rule of thumb, and this is from HB Architects. So it's another company that we work with, but they say, if you just think about 2% of your assets being invested every year. So if you have $100, of assets, then $2, right? Take it up to $1 million. You could do the calculation, 2,000, you take it up to 20 million, et cetera, et cetera. So when you're thinking about what your portfolio is over time, are you investing that percentage into your buildings every year? And very few school districts can afford to do that because once again, our money is finite. But having that rule of thumb and understanding about how we need to keep reinvesting in our buildings is important because roofs, somebody mentioned snow. What was it? Snowmageddon. Fortunately, you guys have been reinvesting in your roofs and you didn't have the gym fall in. So that's important to just remember that that's kind of the structural importance. When we go to the next slide, as I mentioned before, this is the facility condition I was talking about. If you get up into the red zone, the 60 to 100% FCI, that's a scary time. And you really need to think about replacing your buildings. You guys are in that 0 to 40 range. Once again, it's where you guys want to be. What is it your target? What is your FCI target that you want? And that's from a board perspective and from a facility management and from a financial position. What can we support? When we move on to the next slide. Okay, this is your portfolio as it stands right now. So what I did is I've basically shown, the original build date, not its most current. When did I put on the most recent extension or upgrade, et cetera. It's just, this is my original build date. And as you can tell, the original build is about 1955. You have average age is 69 years old. So, aging. Yeah. Square footage, is once again, I break it across by elementary, middle, and the high school. The deficiencies, I just want to highlight, these were the deficiency numbers, dollar amounts that were identified in 2022 when we went through and did the assessment. I escalated it over 8% per year through 2024. It's something that I want to stress that that's a guesstimate. And so we're going to really tone in on that or zoom in on that or whatever that phrase is going in on really point of like, what is the actual deficiency amount now? So what we've talked with Cheryl and with Superintendent Corden is talking with some of your contractors currently that you guys are using. Get a couple like different ideas of what they think the rate of inflation needs to be for us to be considering. And that number is probably going to change, but I just wanted to put that out there because 2022 is 2 years ago and things change. 8% per year. I know,
Yeah.
I know, but that's what we had in our assessment at the time when we did it. Exactly. So all I'm saying is if you go back to the report that we did, that's what that number is going to show. And so I just want to clarify, I'm not changing anything from that report,
Okay.
but that number will change. So yeah, we talked about it. I was like, well, do we do 11? Do we do 13?
Yeah, it's been 15 to 17, at least at least from, as we looked at costs between the first bond issue in 2019.
Okay,
And then we did 2021, 2022.
right.
It was 15% a year
Okay,
over that course. And that included, it was a combination of labor and material.
right.
Right. In a wonky market.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably more likely to be in that 15% a year.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. And I'm not happy to change that because that's a,
We know.
yeah, yeah. But I just wanted to make sure you understood what that was coming from. And then the replacement cost, once again, was 2022 replacement cost. I only escalated it the 8%, so it matches against the report. And that's and that gives you the FCI. That would ripple through though, right? So let's just say hypothetically, you say, Susan, let's just use 15% across for the past 2 years. That's going to ripple through on your current value of your building as well. So your FCI is not going to change that dramatically because everything's shifting, right? So then what we did is I have capacity, and this column is highlighted because that was the capacity as of 2019. And I know since that time, you've added some portables or modulars to some of your buildings. And so some of those numbers are going to shift, and Cheryl and I will work through that. But I just wanted to highlight that I know that some things have come off and come on. And so those numbers will shift a little bit as well. And then I just did the change in enrollment for each of the schools in terms of from 2013-14 to 23-24. And then you can also see what the utilization is. And what I did for utilization is I did it based on capacity, not on program. Once again, I did it on what was it sized to do in terms of how many kiddos it should serve or could serve. And I divided the enrollment by that, not by program. Do you guys have any questions on this? It's a lot of numbers, I know, but it's helpful to understand just the dynamics of what's happening at your different schools. Okay. On the next page, what I did is I just broke it out by elementary schools and secondary so you could kind of see how the different grade configurations were moving. So I'm not going to go into detail on these 2 pages, but I just wanted to break it out for simpler deep dive. If we move on to 20, yep, thank you. One more. Okay, so just as a quick snapshot of the 11 schools over the 10 years, we're looking at a loss of about 655 kiddos. Utilization right now is at about 78%. Looking out into the future, we're looking at dropping to about 68%. But once again, we have to be thinking about potential enrollment shifts and changes. If we are able to retain kids, do they come back from virtual? Do they come back? Do we keep them so they don't leave middle school or high school? So once again, enrollment, tracking that is critically important. Average age of your buildings is 69, square footage, 843,000 square feet. So once again, if you're thinking about your investment, how much you should be putting back into your facilities based on your square footage, et cetera. Surplus seats, you have about 7,100 kiddos can be served in your district at this time. You have about 1,500, almost 1,600 surplus capacity right now. And then looking into the future, once again, we'd be looking at about 2,200, 2,300 surplus seats based on the information we have at this time. Okay, next page, please. Okay, so investment considerations. This is where I hope we can have a robust conversation. And just want to make sure that we're going in the direction that you want us to be going, that you're thinking about. What other things should we be thinking about? And this is being recorded, right? So I can go back and watch it again and again. Okay, great. So let's go on to in the next page, please. Okay, so this is what you guys had before. And what I did is I took all of the projects that had been identified in the 2019 bond and the 2021 bond, and then melded it with the 22 bond. So I just put them all up because I just thought that we should be at least talking about what's important, what's not. And some of these things have already, I think Cheryl came through and got rid of a couple things that have already been done. So this is relatively updated in terms of what the identified project needs might be at this time. So we're looking at security, controlled access, fire alarm detection, et cetera, drop-off safety at elementary schools. And my goodness, this street scares me with drop off. Hopefully they drop off here and not have them go across the street. I'm kidding. I know they don't do that. The next one is facilities, the building at the high school, the main building. We got a chance to walk through that today. Tracy took me through with Danielle. We went down memory lane. Yeah, that building is challenging. So, what are we going to do with that building? Then we have asbestos removal, the 9, the 9x9s. Those are hot. They don't need to be removed as long as you don't lift them up and take them somewhere. But that's a concern is asbestos flooring. What you want to do about that. Then we look into educational supports. What do we need for updates at the elementary and middle schools? I'm sure we'd have principals that would tell us what they think they would need. I think there's a new gym that's required somewhere. Somebody was mentioning. The career and technical educational vocational resources. You guys have phenomenal resources at that high school. And it's exciting for those kids. And are there any additional considerations you need to be making? I think with the relationship you have with UCC, how do you strengthen that relationship so that the kids, when they leave here and go there, they're equipped to be accessing that at the highest level? Which it sounds like you guys are working really hard to do that anyway. So are there additional investments that need to be made in that space? And then the new multi-purpose facilities at the 5 elementary schools. My understanding is that that's kind of interest for the community as well. How do they stay engaged at the elementary school and keep it as part of a community space? Is there any questions about those so far? Okay, then moving on to the next ones. Indoor air quality. This is a hot button for me. Just because I think we all know it with the wildfires in Denver, we had smoke in our buildings from Canada, those Canadians. But we had smoke that was coming in and it turned our skies purple and red and yellow. We had the most amazing sunsets, but it was scary. It was like Mordor. And so air quality is really important. And then we even find with COVID, and then now you're like, okay, how many exchanges do we have to have a day? And what's the filters like? And do we do MERV 13? And, all of that. So indoor air quality, our buildings can't be sick for our kids and for our staff. So that's something to be thinking about. Fixtures, panel upgrades, plumbing pipe fixture replacements district-wide, what's really needed once again, systems. Right? It's systems of your building. And then outdoor activities, the athletic fields, community spaces, school tracks, and then elementary school playgrounds, bringing them up to date and keeping them safe for kiddos and keeping them strong. Okay, our next page. Okay, this is your turn. So I'm hoping what we'd like to do is be able to, we can go back and look at those priorities, or we can just say, let's talk about some other priorities we have, or we can also just vet some questions of any of the information I provided.
Okay, a couple rules. You can't go over an hour each. No. So just, kind of combine your questions if you can. I think this was a good presentation that you gave. Thank you. Made a little bit more sense to me than just going through it. I appreciate that. So I'm gonna start off with Keith. Okay, go for me, and then we'll go ahead and move to you. Nice try.
Yes, good presentation. Really what all I have to say is that you touched on three things that are very much very important to me is the CTE accommodating that growth. Air quality, especially when it comes to air conditioning, and then heat for the principal. Shouldn't have heat in our office here. Simple things like that. But the other thing, and one of my main concerns is for special education. I just want to ensure that we are accommodating space, because the statistics are showing, I don't have them in front of me, that special education needs are increasing quite drastically. And, currently, as you probably saw, we have kids in a shower. That's where a classroom is in a shower, in a locker room. I mean, we've utilized every bit of space we can. These kids are in rooms that don't have windows. I mean, so just, I guess, particular attention to the growth of that student population is important to me in accommodating that.
With that in mind, the special needs, now you said that is taken into consideration in the capacity.
Ideally, it should be. I don't have, for example, I don't have the oh, sorry.
You want to hear yourself when you watch this again.
I need to take notes. Okay, so I don't have the program capacity for the schools. That's, as I said, that area is highlighted that I need to go over with Cheryl and with Superintendent Corden. So I know exactly what programs are where. But those numbers would be updated and we would know, for example, do you have a severe social need classroom that only has 5 children? Okay, well then we have to accommodate that in what we have for the program capacity. Do you have the right, as you said, the right facility spaces, attributes in a classroom that supports different levels of kiddos, special ed children. So that has to be, I vetted as well in terms of what level of the severity we're serving in those schools, because they vary, right? They have different levels. So that's important to have.
And just with the age of our buildings, almost all of them, it seems like, it's like your old car that served you well for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do we keep,
Investing money in it.
patching and
Mhm.
investing, like some that aren't air conditioned?
Right.
What do we,
Right.
so.
Well, and I think that's what you have to be thinking about, priorities. And how do you bring the community along? Right? Because sometimes, I remember there was a school district I was working with, and they had built their elementary schools in 1962. All of them they had built in 1962. And that's a fine year. But when a couple of them that were on the steering committee or the advisory committee for the buildings, they said, well, they're fine. They had running water. Oh, we didn't have running water before 1962 in our buildings. I'm like, really? Let's. So what we did is we took that group and we showed them different buildings of next door neighbors who had invested in those facilities. And we took them on tours and we said, okay, look at this school. Actually, it was the Dragons. It was an elementary school. And the woman, she insisted on having a gas-fired fireplace in the front entrance area because she wanted to make sure that the community felt welcomed and that parents would feel like they could sit and talk with her in a safe place and it was warm and cozy. And not that you want to do fireplaces here, but I'm just saying I know, stop. Let's have that. But the point was, as you walked, the point was, as you walked through that building, you could see the difference in terms of they had collaborative spaces. They had spaces specifically for high needs special ed children, you know, with the swings and with the cushions and with the sensory issues. So they had those places. They had collaborative spaces for teachers where teachers actually had instructional space, you know, the professional learning centers with, you know, walls that they could write on and windows and things like that, so that it was actually a collaborative space working together. They had grades right next door to each other as pods, so that it would be collaborative as well, so that if you were swapping teachers to teach math in one class and English in another, you swap them back and forth, and that was easy to do. So it's important to show people what can be for students. You can't afford to replace all of your, you know, buildings or all of your spaces, but what can you do as priorities? And so that's the vision, and it's going to take time, but you have to start somewhere. What is it? The first journey, longest journey starts with the first step. You know, the longest journey starts with that first, you know, picking up the phone and calling the critic who says that we shouldn't do any investments in schools, and take them around and show them. You know, that's the hard part. But I would visit other school districts. I would take people on tours, or I would think about if you wanted an advisory committee to help you or that kind of thing. Take them to places that you want to show them what can be for children. And you know, that's an opportunity also to see you guys to see other places too. I mean, you might already do that, but
Okay, I'm gonna move on to
Yeah,
back to
sure.
Keith,
yeah,
please.
he's back.
Oh, not working well. Oh, okay. There's just a couple of general observations that new guy on the block, but been around for a while. The process of passing a construction bond in Oregon is broken. It doesn't work. If you look at successes around Oregon, construction bonds don't get approved. And they may get approved in high socioeconomic, high growth areas. And so it's to win, to do this planning process is critical. To win at it, it's going to take another look and some other considerations when we come to the end of this process. The data that we just looked at tonight showing that we're going to have a long-term loss of student growth really mitigates against a construction bond. It says, oh, you got plenty of room. And so do we want to talk about a construction plan or a maintenance plan for this district? Now, a maintenance plan may have some construction, but the emphasis would be on maintenance because we have facilities to meet the need in the next 5 years, supposedly, unless some other things happened. Roseburg's public schools and the school board on Roseburg have always, in my view, been in a position, they say we want to be proactive versus reactive in meeting the needs of our community and our children. And being proactive is trying to say what are our facilities going to be and what should we plan to build? What should we plan to renew? What should we plan to do differently? And I give everyone that's been involved in that a gold star. But the problem is our community is kind of with this message says we're pretty much status quo. So if we're pretty much status quo, just do a good job maintaining what you got. And if our community had a spurt of growth, some really good things happen, we would want, with this board, I would think, in the school district would want to be proactive in addressing that growth and new, but maybe the pressure of that growth and new has to get here before we'll be in a position to ever pass a bond. So we may have to be looking at it as a maintenance plan versus a construction plan and looking at growth to kick in the next step. And I just throw that out. There's the discussion of the listing of the top needs in the district. They should be considered, and I absolutely agree with that. I was thinking as I was looking at this and preparing that we had to know what the top need in each school is, and then the top 3 needs in the entire district, and have those prioritized. There was a lot of good work done in working on the last 2 bond issues. The priorities from the citizen involvement process, I think, which was in the 219 bond effort, were very, very comprehensive. And those priorities would be helpful to look at. And it sounds like you're saying we should look at those anyway. I also wondered about as a strategy, if we can identify that's a bond needed for maintenance, and it's not operational, it's maintenance of facilities, and maybe you can stretch that a little bit, and then a bond needed for construction. If we say the high school needs a new classroom building and we're going to replace the main, but I think what would sell better is the high school needs vocational ed, the what do we call it, the CTE, and that that one could go. And I was also looking at the concept of you were talking about 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. That 5-year plan and 10-year plan may be, here's what you need to do for maintenance for these next 5 years, and you need to have a bond to accomplish that. And here's what you may need in the second 5 years to start looking at construction, because that'll give the economy a chance to get better from today. And so it would be a plan that would have a split concept, immediacy that we have to find some money for, and then what the vision is for when that economic development happens, when that click happens. So it would just be more of a split plan that would look at both parts. Let's see, what else am I on a roll? Oh, the one other thing is that I think it would really be valuable to say and have really clear, and we do this every time, but if you pass a bond for this much, this is what the state gives you. This is what the match is. But that match is got to be, it's a hook when we're out there fishing. And I think that's going to be a real important component to even talk about in the plan. And finally, I strategically, I don't know that this plan does this, but we should carefully look at where successes have occurred in Oregon. And I hope Oakland passed. Did they? Wow. Okay. But also the information on when the successes were they in spring elections or fall elections? I've always said that I think we should have our bond elections in the fall when everybody's excited and happy about school and not worn out from the year, and have it in the spring. This district have chosen not to do that, but that was my own opinion. So I'm throwing it into my small presentation. And then there was one other thing that I had and I don't know if this is appropriate for this kind of study, but I'll tell you the CMGC, the Construction Management General Contractor process with value engineering and the concepts that Oregon now allows local governments to use is a very cost efficient and effective way to accomplish some construction. And I think that process ought to be discussed in the plan also. Yeah. Yeah. But do people know it? Does the community know it? I know that's not a criticism. It's just that it is such a new, efficient process. Enough from me.
Comments? You two are up.
question, looking at the numbers as far as the 10-year projected that you have here. How did you, the projection, how did you get that information? I mean, do you go to the county and look at what the county is thinking of building? Because I'm looking at this map here.
Yeah.
And we kind of know there's not a whole lot going on here.
Right.
I mean, is Google moving in?
No.
Are we gonna get a Facebook plant here?
No,
I don't
so-
think that's gonna happen.
No, so what we do is we take that, I don't know if you've given them the enrollment report. Do they have access to?
We give a monthly enrollment report
Okay.
to all of our school board.
Oh, okay. So the report that we did for you guys, takes into consideration, the report that we do for you all takes into consideration, what has happened in the past, right? Which is the historic component. And then looking to the future, we do look to see if there is identified growth that's going to be happening. We do look to see if there are plans for growth. So for example, we did include the proposed property down in the southwest that may come up. That was not included in our projections. We just put that as a comment because that's still out into the future and has not yet been defined. But we take the information that is provided to us that we can access from the county and as well as from state, any information related to quote unquote growth and demographers. Then we also say, okay, when we're looking at kindergartners, we're looking first 5 years ago, how many births took place? And then, and in the county, even if you're somebody who has to go out of county to have the baby, it's if you live in this county, the baby is counted here. And then we look to see how many have been born in the 5 years ago and assume that they're going to be kindergartners 5 years later. So we add them in as the kindergartners and then watch how the history has been in terms of matriculation across your cohorts from kinder to first to second to third. So that there is a high level of enrollment, like a higher level than what we recommended here. And then there's also a lower expectation. So we try to get in between the optimistic, really positive, oh gosh, look, you might have even more people come in, or the more negative, you might experience continued loss. We try to kind of find that sweet spot of where we think you're going to be. So we do take in consideration what growth has been identified and or what opportunities for growth. But we're also looking at statistics in terms of population changes, over your decade as well as over 3 years and 5 years.
So do you interview the county planning commission? We had the commissioner here.
No, we don't.
you know
We,
what I mean, do you?
no, we honestly, we kind of rely on you guys, your staff to help inform us in terms of what might be happening in the area. And what we do is we look at the American statistics that come out in between why am I blanking on the 10-year census? So we're able to still get statistics in between the census year, and that's what we draw on. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's your personal opinion of the 2019 report?
The one that we did for you guys?
That'll be whether I have a lot of questions or barely any questions.
Okay.
Yeah, the 2019 one, the one that was saying we're going to take 11 schools, turn them into 5 K through 12s. It looked like an inner city Chicago plan to just flip our district on its head with, a cost savings, in my opinion, new strategy.
Right.
And that's why I was one of the ones that was pushing to have you come out here, because I was like, because I read the last report and it
Right.
scared the hell out of me.
Right.
So there was a 3-foot pool at Melrose, and I immediately called the superintendent. I'm like, how many kids drowned in 2019 in that 3-foot pool? Didn't exist. But there was a lot of red flags and a lot of information in that report.
Right.
That, your presentation tonight is fantastic. The way that you laid out what stage in the process we're at right now, also fantastic. But I mean, that last report that we got, I was like, what do we pay for? So I was really, really concerned. I'm not as concerned after you are talking, but and there's a lot of stuff that you can do COVID mulligan on, like the 2019 report was like 24 kids outside of being outside of the entire range of what you guys were projecting.
Okay.
So, I mean, in my personal opinion, I think that we're going to be closer to continuing to be stabilized than we are losing 500 or 600 kids. So, I mean, my strong considerations on this, closing schools is a brutal thing. It's a very, very brutal thing in this area. So that's probably going to be like our last option to close
Right.
a school.
Okay.
I mean, we have at Melrose, we have a, from 2 centuries ago, a building that we transported to keep. So in rural areas like this, if you blow up a building, everybody's going to lose their mind.
Right.
So, you know, I think there should be a strong consideration that, you know, that's going to be the very last option for us is to get rid of the building. I agree with Keith on the maintenance stuff. And also, you know, it's been 24 years since we passed a bond. And I don't really see the public opinion changing, although we have a new superstar on the board that, you know, is going to work with us to, you know, drive that train. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I had other stuff, but this is running really long.
Well, if you have other thoughts and want to include it, you can send it over to the superintendent and he can send me an email, or I can give you my email address and I can include that as well, if that would be helpful. Happy to have the conversation.
Could I add to assist in that? Early in this process, this time, it really should be a discussion with the board. Are we going to protect neighborhood schools? And if the answer is to yes, then they know what that answer is. I concur with you. Closing a school it's painful, painstaking, and it changes education boundaries. It changes why people bought houses. It changes why what people are expecting. And in our district, neighborhood schools are part of the fundamental foundation of I think what people's ownership in this community are.
Okay, I'll just take a couple minutes. If you want to find an easy way to get me off the board, attempt to close a school, because I'm the only one on this board that was involved. And it was a 4-3 vote, and I was one of the 3s. This is absolutely not. You tear the heart out of a little community, and that's Rose School. I said, I will never support closing. Well, I should say never, because there's politicians that say that, and it comes back to bite them, but it's just not in my blood to do that. I get concerned about enrollment numbers and projecting. Years ago, Keith can remember how many years ago, because I can't, we had a projection that we were going to have 9,000 kids, 9,000 student population. Now, things were a lot different then. Economy was different. Log trucks were flowing. I mean, we were just flying. And the state was kind of purple, and I'm going to get politicky, but it's very blue. And until the state kind of figures out what they're going to do, it's going to be really tough to grow these numbers. But that still doesn't stop our buildings from getting younger and needing to be replaced or fixed. And our kids, I believe, deserve to come into a classroom when it's 100 degrees outside. They deserve just as much as anybody else in the state. And so I'm one that kind of moves forward, likes to move forward. Whatever happened in the past in some of these reports, we can correct. Based on the comments based on what this board wants to do. And I think that's where we probably should focus. I think that's where Steve wants to do too, is to focus on that. What we can do. It's really welcoming to have Keith here, because he just has a different perspective. I mean, he comes up with different ideas, but he's done things like this. This was kind of his career. So he he's a professional at that, so he's gonna be a very big part of this. But so my concerns are enrollment. I don't know if we're gonna have 5,000. I don't know if we're gonna have 8,000. I'm too old to have any more kids, so don't rely on me to have it. But we gotta grow babies. I mean, we grow chickens, so somehow we've gotta get, you know, we gotta figure something out. So our buildings some of our buildings need to be replaced. A lot of our buildings need to be replaced, and you just can't keep putting lipstick on a pig.
Well, your team has certainly taken very good care of your buildings. Your children are safe and, you know, they have the teachers and it's not raining on them, you know, and there's places where it's raining. But I hear you.
Yeah, were you done, man? So what's the next step?
Well, so the next step is I will, take the information, the questions you guys had, and I'll put it in, I don't like the word memo, but I'll put it in a background kind of doc and send it on over to Cheryl and to Superintendent Gordon, and they can share it with you. And if there's anything else that you want us to be considering, or thinking about, for example, the maintenance bond versus a large construction bond, or, you know, that type of thing, we can evaluate that out. And then we can also plan when we come back in September, early October, have that broken out in those spaces of maintenance versus construction. We'll pass it by you guys, of course, before we do that, and then we'll survey the community and talk with the community about that too. I don't think there's a discussion about let's shift all the grade configurations around. I don't think that's in the space.
So if I read on the schedule, June and July is that the month scheduled for?
That's for us kind of doing a little bit of background work with.
Okay,
your
but
team.
that isn't the 2 months that the community is gonna be, because those are summers just should be out.
No, that's more us
Okay.
working with your team, your executive team, to make sure we've put some things together for us to be talking
Okay,
with
and
the
then Jared
community.
can work with the board on maybe some work session type things that we should.
Right. And if
should-
you need me to be in a Zoom or a conversation, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I think we're at the point where a Zoom would work, but
Yeah.
this meeting did not work for us for a Zoom.
No,
We needed
right.
to,
You needed to see face to face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zoom's little boxes, and
yeah, okay.
yeah, I'm happy to do that.
I just wondered, I'd like to ask the superintendent, what's the district's confidence in surveying constituents about elections,
Relative to
passing a bond?
passing a bond, well, we've done that. We had we did some pretty extensive survey work in 2019 and 2021. And the numbers were about 8 to 10% different in the survey results as to the election results. Now, they were interesting times. We're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. The bond work has to happen a year or so ahead of, obviously that spot. So that was interesting. On the first one, it was COVID, it was a May election. Schools were closed. And so that was interesting. It was 2%. We lost by 2%, 660 votes. And but we were in the polling projected to win, that election by about 6%. We went out in 2021, did some extensive polling, actually hired a consultant, and we had kind of a process that went through that. We had also a different process with community engagement. And it was off about 10% in the polling, although we had about a 40-year high in inflation, where gas was cresting about $6. Inflationary costs were pretty significant. So again, is it polling data that's inaccurate, or is it just the timing of the bond is a question? But the polling, what we've paid for polling, has not yielded a result for us.
So much will be. We'll see you again, either in a box or,
Uh, uh,
no, that didn't come out right. Either on.
Do you know something I don't know when I drive home?
I'll take it from here. Thank you, Susan.
It's getting late, so let's move on. Okay, Cheryl. Number 4.
Policy DID capital asset inventories for second reading.
Need a motion and a second, please.
I move to adopt policy DID, capital investment, asset inventories.
I'll second. I can get the next one if you want.
We have a motion and a second discussion. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Policy EFA local wellness for adoption on second reading.
So I'll go ahead and motion to approve policy EFA local wellness.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second.
and a second discussion. Call for the vote. All in favor? Okay. Move on to reports. Steve, you gonna handle this one?
That would be me to start.
Or, no,
Yeah, I got it. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We have building sites and we have curriculum, so I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
care who goes first.
I'll go first.
Okay,
I'll try to keep this less than 45 minutes. Okay, on April 17th, our committee met with Dr. Weber's team. And that's the teaching and learning department. And then she basically was telling us that we have 2 coordinators. One of the coordinators is focusing in on the social emotional learning. And I guess then there were several other things that they were focusing in on. They were focusing on the Roseburg virtual school, teacher mentorship, math and science programs and instruction, and many others. There's just a bunch of stuff that we talked about, but very informative. We didn't have a whole lot of questions because you just pretty much laid it out. The one thing that we did learn a little bit more about was the science curricula was still being piloted at the time. I think we're getting closer to some to making some decisions on that, but that'll probably be another few weeks from now. And that's about it.
okay, Steve.
Yeah, so Building Insights met on May 13th. I want to thank Rod and Mike for covering that meeting. The committee reviewed progress on construction of the final security vestibules in our district. Work started at Fullerton and Sunny Slope. Construction at Green is expected to start prior to the end of the school year. Work at Hillcrest and Melrose will begin after the school year ends, so summertime. S&B James intends to complete the projects prior to the start of the next school year. Reminder that there isn't a vestibule plan for the Roseburg virtual school at this time. But back to S&B James's timeline. I know we've had the ongoing dialogue that the projects are funded through the ESSER grant funding, which expires in September. So I really want to thank Cheryl and Tracy for getting those projects through before those funds disappeared. Construction on a new bathroom facility is underway at Hillcrest Elementary. There's pictures of it, but let me know after if you want to see them. Works began on the storage building. I've been actually physically watching that process every time I pick my kid up. And that's for the school arts building for the purpose of protecting the band and choir equipment. So the district was able to acquire blocks that are similar to the brick of the nearby buildings. So they'll have a clean look. And last thing to go over is the walk-in coolers are being installed at Hillcrest and Melrose Elementary schools. Intention on these is to increase efficiency using funding from the Nutrition Services Fund. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Chair Cotton. Appreciate it. I've got a short report. It's 9 o'clock yet? Oh, it's 9 o'clock. I'll go fast here. Like to just say we've got great kids and staff. It's so fun tonight to see these kids and recognize staff. A couple things happening. You know, kids are getting great experiences in our schools. Got kids hopping into Reach helicopter here. We heard about some great things happening this week from kids serving the community and getting great experiences. Tonight you heard from our student reps tonight about the nursing assistant program. It's cool to see that matriculation. It was fun last meeting to spend some time with UCC. We've got 8 kids that are gonna be taking care of me when I'm older, which is great. They'll have jobs in the community, and that will be able to support a family, hopefully raise lots of kids, stay in the district. The other thing to recognize here, which is really cool, share with you tonight is we've said for a while, I'll talk about this in just a minute, but we aspire to be a place that people come to learn how to do things right. And we are becoming that place where many people across the state are reaching out to say, what are you doing there? Help us understand. I spent some time with the governor's office today talking about some things that I think need to improve. And I think the governor wants to help improve to have better outcomes for kids. So we have legislators reaching out. We also have staff across the state reaching out. We had math coaches around the state that have been here in Roseburg meeting with our staff, as well as in Bend meeting with their staff, just to figure out what we're doing to get the results we're seeing. And so I just want to give kudos to obviously to our kids. Our staff's amazing. We've got great people working for us. Just touch real briefly on election results. Director Kubik mentioned this tonight. I want to share a couple things with you about the election results. First of all, voting matters. This is a map of a combination of local option levies and capital improvement bonds for schools. 8 were passing, 8 failed, and basically 8 passed, and 3 were very close. I'll talk about that in just a minute. So in the Fern Ridge School District, just outside Eugene, they have a $16 million capital improvement bond that was separated by 1 vote. So 1,298 to 1,299. In the Oakland School District, you probably have seen that with local news. You know the implications of that bond. It was 18 votes separating those two. And in the Molalla School District, which Molalla River, $77.5 million bond, that was separated by 9 votes. 9. So 1534 to 1525. So very, very close. So the power of voting matters. Now, what's interesting about this is this map of green, although it kind of follows the valley area, is also kind of unique because you see Banks School District, which is a rural school district outside the metro area with about 1,000 kids, about 5 times smaller than we are, passed a bond of about $50 million to about 1,000 kids there. The rate on that bond was $2.99 per thousand. So for a little perspective here, the first bond we floated in 2019 was $1.27. 2021, the bond was $1.85 per thousand, and the last bond that failed was 98 cents per thousand. The most interesting of these bonds, and again, some of these, like Portland Public passed, this was a local option levy. There's already a significant bond up there. This was to effectively cover the costs of their contracts that were settled up to the strike. This was an additional $1.99 on top of what is probably over $3 in capital improvements that did pass. Ben Lapine, however, lost theirs. It was also a capital improvement bond of about $112 million to cover the cost of their contracts and other things. The most interesting one, though, and you'll see Willamina is a very rural community passing a bond. But the most interesting one of all that I'll mention is Jervis School District. So the Jervis School District sits in Polk County. It had not passed a bond since 1992. And Jervis this was like the existential threat of a non-investment in Jervis was this. The board had voted that if this bond does not pass, they dissolve. This was the bond, the board and the superintendent both said if the bond doesn't pass, we can't exist anymore. It was going to be folded into 4 different school districts. This was an example of a place that just has been unable to pass a bond. For a long time, their buildings were dilapidated. They were old. They were nearly the age of our buildings, by the way. fact, some of our buildings are much older than the oldest building in Jervis. So they had to engage their community in a really honest conversation about their future. This was effectively an existential threat to the future of Jervis. That bond passed 73%, yes. So something about the right message matters. It's not a community. The valuation of that community economically is significantly lower. It has many challenges there, but it did pass pretty significantly. So what I would say this is I'm optimistic about the conversation about our future. It has to be the right conversation. It's not just that metro growing areas of growth can pass bonds. We've seen that even in this economy, which is challenging. Yes, the Dow is at 40,000, but people can't fill their car up and put food on their table. They couldn't in Jervis either. So something we can learn from that. All right, let me talk real quick about our dear friend Howard. Love Howard Johnson. He's a great guy. Love that family. Howard often talked about this quote from Aristotle. Children are the legacy we leave behind for the age we will not live to see. So as I think about Howard, I think about this strat plan. Howard and I talked a lot about this strategic plan, a lot about how to support children. As I speak with you too, I would just say one of the ways to honor Howard is to deliver on this. To make sure our focus is about caring for kids, supporting them, and we'll miss Howard, but we will sustain his legacy by moving this work forward. I want to end by this. I may have talked about this before, but it's very interesting to be in the context of tonight's presentation. This is a picture of Dubai. I'm not suggesting we become Dubai, but Dubai in the 90s was effectively a desert with a few buildings. This statement by Sheikh Mohammed is what you see as you drive into the city of Dubai. Dubai is a challenging place in many ways to build. It's probably one of the worst places to build with sandstorms. They have very little foundational material to work with. It's a desert. But it is fundamentally shifted on the premise of this quote, that the future belongs to those who can imagine it, design it, and execute it. It is not something you wait for, but it's something you create. It's worth going back to look in Dubai 40 years ago and look at it now. It's almost an impossibility that city exists. The growth there is astounding. What they're doing there is actually astounding. And I know we could talk about different culture and we could talk about oil money and all the things, but that quote is worth us thinking about as we think about what's possible here in our community. Thank you.
This is time for individual reports. I'll start with Keith. Okay.
I too will miss Howard, especially with the way his mind was with numbers. I learned a lot from him and about how he thinks. The other thing I wanted to share is that how excited I was to learn that RHS woodshop teacher Jean Castillo and special education teacher Jane Barrow hosted a first of its kind joint project for our RHS woodworking students and elementary students from Eastwood, where the high school students helped the elementary kids make woodcraft gifts for Mother's Day. What a wonderful way to connect students and build relationships. And thank you, teachers, for doing this. And I hope to see more types of these collaborations in the future.
That's beautiful. Mr. Leone, Director Leone. Okay. Steve?
Yeah, I also wanted to say how much Howard will be missed. He knew his wealth of knowledge and his experiences in life were really stellar. And I was looking forward to spending a good amount of time with him. And in remembrance of Howard, I will say that I have nothing to benefit the children tonight.
Yeah, just same sentiments about Howard. Very, it hit me sadder than I expected. But I, believe, hoping that, he's happy, and, we just pray for the family, and but he will be greatly missed. He was the first board member that I reached out to when I was first running, and I went to his office, and it was just a great resource, and he has been a good resource for me for the last couple of years. So appreciate him, and that's all.
We're wrapping up. A reminder, the next board meeting will be June 5th at Joseph Lane. I'm a tour at 4:45. And then we only have one meeting in June, is that correct? So a reminder about graduation on the 1st. If you, and I hope you all plan on attending. If you do, please make sure that you've gone to the link and sign up. So they'll have all your gown and headpieces and whatever we have to wear, but it's a lot of fun. And it's yeah, so that's the first, and then a couple of things tomorrow at 5 to 7 at Winchester. An open house will be fun, and especially towards the end of the year is kind of different. I'm looking forward to that. And then on Friday, there's a flag ceremony here at 9:10. There's Furgrove they've done this for years, having the flags on the graves at the cemetery, and that starts at
1 at 9 and 1 at 10.
1 at 9 and 1 at 10. You're more than welcome to let them, go and help that. And then there's one other school that's having Eastwood is Nature Days, and it wraps up tomorrow. I think that's it. Lots of fun things happening. Thank you so much. This has been a long board meeting. I appreciate the comments have been fantastic, and it's been a good night. I will adjourn the meeting.